Chapter 79. A moving piece of wood? A blue ball? Hulk put down the barbecue in his hand and used his hand to make a picture of Rog's Odama Rasengan. Not those, it's more suitable for you, or fighting skills. Even if Rog is willing to teach Hulk would release and Rasengan, Hulk can't learn it because Hulk doesn't have chakra at all. But even if Hulk has chakra, Rog won't teach him would release and Rasengan. Would release is a bloodline limit, and he can't teach it if he wants to. Rasengan requires superb control of chakra, which is also not suitable for Hulk. If Hulk really has chakra, then the most suitable for him is the peak representative of taijutsu, Hashiman Tonku. Hulk opening the Hashiman Tonku, this picture is very exciting. Taijutsu? Hulk doesn't know what taijutsu is. Taijutsu is relying on the body to attack directly. Your usual attack style belongs to taijutsu. Taijutsu is just a name. If you like, you can also call it close combat, or fighting. After eating the last piece of barbecue on the barbecue, Rog stood up and came in front of Hulk. At this time, although Hulk is sitting on the ground, he is not much shorter than Rog. Just as he was about to stand up, Rog stopped him. Just sit down. Because of time, I can't show you in person, but I can teach you in another way. Relax your mind, don't resist. As soon as his voice fell, Rog's eyes turned into 3 Tomo Sharingan. After seeing Rog's Sharingan, Hulk recalled some bad memories. I will leave you with an illusionary teaching scene. This illusion will not harm you. When you have time, or when Banner masters the body, you can take the time to learn it. Although Hulk doesn't understand what an illusion teaching scene is, he believes in his intuition at this time. He believes that Rog will not hurt him. With Hulk's active cooperation, Rog smoothly left an illusion teaching scene in his mind. In order to permanently engrave this illusion teaching scene in Hulk's memory, Rog used Sharingan's eye power to the limit for the first time. The scene created by Genjutsu is permanently engraved in the memory of the target. This is a trick he learned by accident when he recently studied Sharingan Genjutsu. He originally intended to develop a Genjutsu that could make the target permanently trapped in an illusion, but the result failed without suspense. When the power of the Sharingan he left in the target's body is exhausted, the target will get rid of the illusion and their consciousness will return to the real world. Although of the research and development of Genjutsu, of course. This little trick is a small skill is of Genjutsu of Genif of Genjutsu is of Genif of is of Genif is of him. For this reason, he even gave this little technique, which could not be directly used in battle, a very simple name. Genjutsu. Because there is no need to maintain the illusion all the time, and there is no need to isolate the target's perception of the outside world, the consumption of this Genjutsu is not very large. The only thing to pay attention to is to constantly strengthen this illusion so that the target permanently remembers everything in the illusion, rather than being completely blurred after a period of time like a dream. The illusion that Rog created for Hulk at this time is a ring the size of a football field. There are 2 Hulks fighting in the ring. These 2 Hulks are proficient in boxing, Muay Thai, Sanda, Israeli fighting techniques, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the SCARS fighting system of the United States Special Forces. They will not be tired or injured, and they will fight over and over again. Simply put, this is like a real-life fighting teaching video created with Hulk as the standard. As for how much Hulk himself can learn from it, it depends on Hulk's own comprehension ability. After permanently engraving this illusion teaching scene in Hulk's memory, Rog's eyes also returned to their normal appearance. You should learn this first. If there is a chance in the future, I will teach you a top body technique called Hashiman Tonku. Although he said this, Rog himself still does not know Hashiman Tonku. And more importantly, he does not know how to let Hulk have chakra. Although Hulk does not know what Hashiman Tonku is, his intuition tells him that it must be a very powerful body technique. In the following time, after Rog and Hulk finished all the remaining barbecue and fruit, Rog finally received a call from Dr. Ross. Get up, I will take you to a place. Not long after Hulk stood up, Rog locked onto the flying Thor kunai in Dr. Ross's hand, and then disappeared with Hulk. After hanging up the phone, Dr. Ross held the flying Thor kunai anxiously and constantly turned her head to look around. According to Rog's instructions, she took the flying Thor kunai and came to a forest on the outskirts of Ottawa. Just as she was thinking about when Rog and Banner would appear, she saw a green giant suddenly appear in front of her. Banner, although Dr. Ross knew that Banner would turn into a green giant, after seeing Hulk with her own eyes, she couldn't help but take a few steps back. After bringing Hulk over, Rog did not look at Dr. Ross, but directly opened the system's commission page. Commission content: stop Hulk from destroying New York and send him to Canada. Commission status: completed. Commission reward: 50 ninja coins. Ninja coins not consumed: 74. After confirming that the system's commission had been completed, Rog turned to Hulk and said, "Let Banner come out. If you have time, practice your fighting skills well, and the next time we meet, be stronger." Hulk turned his head and glanced at Rog. Without speaking, he silently returned his body to Banner. When Hulk turned back into Banner, Dr. Ross trotted over and hugged Banner, whose clothes had been completely torn. "The commission is over, you can return the kunai to me." Rog had just taken the flying Thor kunai from Dr. Ross when his cell phone rang. The caller was an unfamiliar number. After connecting, he heard Natasha's voice. "What the hell did you do? Why did another green giant appear? Wait, why are you in Canada? You were just..." Rog did not answer Natasha and hung up the phone directly. This is why he doesn't want to carry a mobile phone with him. These electronic products violate his privacy too much. Another green giant? Is it Abomination? Glancing at Banner and Dr. Ross, who were hugging each other tightly, Rog coughed softly and then said silently, "S.H.I.E.L.D. has located here. If you don't want to be caught again, I suggest you leave here immediately." Chapter 80. After reminding Banner and Dr. Ross, Rog left with the Flying Thunder God. As for what Banner and Dr. Ross will do in the future, it has nothing to do with him. And with Hulk around, they won't be in any danger. Rog first teleported back to the location of the pickup truck, took the Kusanagi sword and several other equipment, and then teleported back to the office in New York. As soon as he returned to the office, his cell phone rang again. "General Ross has just informed us that the new green monster is not Hulk, but Bronsky, who has been injected with Banner's serum. He has applied for assistance from S.H.I.E.L.D. and the director has agreed to his request." Natasha didn't dwell on the fact that Rog had just hung up on her and quickly introduced the current situation. "And then? What does this have to do with me?" After hearing Rog's answer, Natasha suddenly froze for a moment, and then remembered that Rog was just a private detective who was commissioned, not an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. "We can make a commission, and the price will not be lower than Banner's." "Not interested." After that, Rog hung up the phone again. Although the Abomination has appeared, he has no interest in stopping the Abomination. Even if S.H.I.E.L.D. is willing to pay for it, he is not interested. The trouble he caused, he has to solve it himself. After putting the Kusanagi sword and the round fan back into the psychic scroll, he turned on the TV in the office and then turned to the current affairs news channel. After transforming into the Abomination, Bronsky originally planned to destroy the base's laboratory and then leave with Dr. Stone. But because of a small mistake, the laboratory exploded and Dr. Stone was killed on the spot. Bronsky felt a little sorry for Dr. Stone's tragic experience for a second or two, and then he used his own tyrannical strength to force his way out of the base. If Bronsky had left New York, General Ross wouldn't have been able to find him for a while. He didn't know if it was because of the influence of the serum or because of the absolute confidence brought by the sudden increase in strength, but instead of fleeing like Banner, Bronsky took the initiative to show up and unscrupulously vented the powerful strength he had just gained in downtown New York. Thus, General Ross's army fought against the Abominations. Fighting the Abominations in the densely populated city of New York was not a wise decision for General Ross. They couldn't use weapons of mass destruction in the city, nor could they mobilize troops on a large scale. With the warriors under his command alone, it was absolutely impossible to stop Abomination, so General Ross quickly made a decision and applied to S.H.I.E.L.D. for assistance. Then S.H.I.E.L.D.'s request for help came to ROG. Due to his outstanding performance in Culver University, everyone regarded him as the best candidate for this mission. However, they did not expect that ROG would directly reject them. Reading the news report, ROG leisurely drank his frozen Coca-Cola and considered whether he should go to the VIP front row to see the Abomination with his own eyes. But in the end, he gave up on the idea and asked Erica to order takeout for him. 20 minutes later, the door of the firm was pushed open. But what came in was not the takeout guy that ROG imagined, but Natasha, who was wearing a S.H.I.E.L.D. uniform. And in Natasha's hand, she was holding the takeout that should have been delivered by the takeout guy. Bronsky now has power that is no weaker than Hulk. If he is allowed to continue like this, all of New York will be destroyed. After saying that, Natasha put the takeout in her hand in front of ROG, and then continued, "I know you don't have much affection for S.H.I.E.L.D., but the ordinary people outside need your help now. Okay, don't kidnap me with these so-called righteous acts. It's you who want to maintain world peace, but it's also you who are creating threats. If you hadn't been thinking about mastering the power that doesn't belong to you all day long, the monsters outside wouldn't have appeared." ROG didn't look at Natasha, but directly opened the takeout and took out the fried chicken legs and fries inside. "Are you really not going to do anything?" Natasha's tone was no longer as tough as before, but with a hint of pleading. "It's not like you can't deal with Bronsky. Although he is now green and bigger, he is still a flesh and blood creature. He will be tired, hurt, and bleed, you." Speaking of this, ROG suddenly thought of something and put down the fried chicken legs and the happy drink in his hand. A flesh and blood creature with its own consciousness. This guy should meet the standards of a psychic beast. In order to confirm his thoughts, he deliberately opened the system's introduction to the psychic blood contract scroll and carefully browsed through it. From Natasha's point of view, ROG seemed to be thinking about something seriously. She couldn't see the system page that appeared in front of ROG at all. "It's not that I can't accept the commission, but I have a condition. After subduing this guy, he will belong to me." "Okay. As long as you can subdue Bronsky, you can do whatever you want with Bronsky, S.H.I.E.L.D., and the military will never ask." After hearing ROG's words, Natasha agreed without thinking. After getting Natasha's guarantee, ROG exchanged a commission scroll from the system. When Professor Ross started the commission, he used up the last commission scroll. The reward is $100 million. You can write the rest yourself. Looking at the scroll that appeared out of thin air in ROG's hand, Natasha didn't have any surprise and directly took the scroll and wrote the content of the commission on it. Commission content: subdue Bronsky, Abomination. Commission status: incomplete. Commission reward: 30 ninja coins. When Natasha finished writing the scroll, a new commission task appeared on the system's commission page. Compared with Hulk, the system's evaluation of Abomination is obviously much lower, and the reward given is not even half of Hulk's. Abomination's ranking is not good. Of course, this may also be the system's judgment after re-evaluating his current strength. Although 30 ninja coins is not very rich, it is enough for him to make this trip. And what he really wants now is not ninja coins, but a psychic beast that belongs to him. After spending 20 ninja coins to learn the psychic technique, ROG always felt that he had lost money. But the appearance of Abomination gave him some hope of making up for his psychological loss. Psychic beast, Abomination. Abomination's appearance is ugly, but since it has been classified as a psychic beast, its appearance is not very important. Chapter 81. I'll take this commission. You can inform S.H.I.E.L.D. to transfer the money now. After that, ROG left the office directly with the Flying Thunder God and came to the roof of a building near Abomination. Looking down from the top of the building, Abomination was like a rampaging beast, constantly destroying and attacking the streets. Although the soldiers around him were doing their best to attack Abomination, they did not cause any harm to Abomination. Instead, they made Abomination more violent. In other words, he was more excited. Looking at the pedestrians fleeing around him and the soldiers who were nervous but could not retreat, Abomination couldn't help laughing wildly. This perfect body. This powerful strength. This feeling of dominating everything. This is the future I really want. I am God. Just as Abomination was fantasizing about the beautiful scene in the future, a liquid bullet hit his right face like lightning, leaving a visible scar on his face. Water release water iron cannon technique. The one who launched the attack was none other than Rog, who had just jumped from the top of the building. At this time, Rog was only wearing a 3-tomo mask, but Abomination recognized him at a glance. It was this guy who defeated Hulk. After seeing that the attacker was Rog, Abomination did not launch an attack as casually as before, but looked at Rog seriously. This guy defeated Hulk. If I defeat him, it proves that I am stronger than Hulk. I am the strongest. After a series of illogical thoughts, the Abomination was driven by its instincts and sprinted towards Rog. In the eyes of others, Abomination was like a prehistoric behemoth running towards Rog. In Rog's eyes, Abomination was like a green pet dog running to its owner. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters, 1 meter. When Abomination came to a meter in front of him, Rog threw the flying Thor kunai in his hand very casually. Although Abomination knows that Rog has the ability to teleport, at this distance, he has absolute confidence that he can punch Rog into a meat patty. However, things did not develop as he had imagined. Rog disappeared. When his right fist was only a few centimeters away from Rog, Rog disappeared. After sensing Rog's disappearance, the Abomination immediately withdrew its fist and turned around. The scene of Rog hitting Hulk with Odama Rasengan left a very deep impression on Abomination. He didn't want to encounter Hulk's original scene. Abomination was not like Hulk, personally experiencing the power of Odama Rasengan, because Rog did not use Odama Rasengan at all. After turning around, Abomination saw Rog and the flying Thor kunai that had just been thrown out by Rog. Before he could realize what had happened, the scene in front of him changed in an instant. What appeared in front of him was no longer the chaotic street, but a forest he had never seen before. Rog did not intend to solve Abomination in New York City, so he took Abomination directly to one of the forests where he practiced Mokutan. Throwing out the flying Thor kunai, Flying Thunder God's second stage, leaving the flying Thor technique on Abomination, and then teleporting them here together. Before getting the immortal body, Rog's mastery of the flying Thor second stage was not particularly proficient, so he rarely used the flying Thor second stage in battle. But after getting the immortal body, he found that his mastery of the flying Thor second stage had an inexplicable improvement. Now as long as he wants, he can Flying Thunder God's second stage anytime and anywhere, and he doesn't have to worry about the possibility of failure. After bringing Abomination to this unknown forest, Rog did not give him any time to think and directly used Mokutan Wood Dragon technique. A long hook-nosed wood dragon, more than 10 meters long, emerged from the ground and completely entangled Abomination with lightning speed. Like Hulk, Abomination didn't take this wood dragon to heart at first, but he soon found that his thoughts were a little too naive. Don't struggle, unless I'm willing to let you out, you can't break free. After saying that, Rog also let the wood dragon bite Abomination hard. Although this will not cause any harm to Abomination, Rog still did it. For no reason, just to provoke Abomination. His physical strength was rapidly disappearing uncontrollably, and the wood dragon was getting tighter and tighter. It wasn't until this time that Abomination finally understood why S.H.I.E.L.D. had entrusted Rog to capture Hulk. In terms of results, Abomination's speculation was correct. But in terms of the actual situation, Hulk was a little worse than he is now. After all, what Hulk enjoyed at the beginning was not the wood dragon technique, but one Odama Rasengan after another. I won't talk nonsense with you. I have a contract scroll here. After signing it, you will be my psychic beast. When I need you, I will summon you to come out and fight for me. In return, you will have a certain amount of freedom and will not be hunted down by Shield and General Ross. Rog took out the psychic blood contract scroll that the system gave him last time and opened the side that needed to be signed. Sign your head. Although Abomination didn't know what a psychic beast meant, he knew very well that this blood contract must not be signed. Signing it would be worse than death. Whether you like it or not, you have to sign it today. As soon as his voice fell, Rog increased his chakra output and accelerated the speed at which the wood dragon absorbed Abomination's physical strength. It didn't take long for Abomination, who was originally active as if injected with stimulants, to become extremely weak, and his whole body exuded a dying aura. When the wood dragon left Abomination, the nearly 4-meter-tall Abomination fell forward uncontrollably, making a low sound of falling to the ground. I'll ask you again, are you going to sign it or not? Even though the Abomination couldn't even stand up, he still expressed his opinion clearly. Although Rog can directly control Abomination to sign a contract with Sharingan, this is not a long-term solution after all, and he can't pay attention to Abomination's situation at all times. So he decided to solve all the problems at once. Wood release, wood puppet technique. A 5-meter-tall wood arhat emerged from the ground, and then came in front of Abomination, and beat Abomination violently. Time passed little by little. After being deeply touched by Wood Arhat's iron fist of love, Abomination used the fingers of his right hand to touch some of the green blood flowing out of his body, and seriously wrote his name on the blood contract scroll. When Abomination finished writing his name, Rog opened his attribute panel and looked at the column of Psychic Beast. Psychic Beast, Punisher Frank, Edo Tensei State, Abomination Bronsky. Chapter 82. Looking at the information displayed in the property panel, Rog nodded with satisfaction, and then said to the Abomination lying on the ground, "From now on, you are my summon beast. Under normal circumstances, I won't restrict your freedom, but you'd better control your temper and don't make trouble everywhere. In addition, when I summon you, you'd better listen to the arrangement. Someone will come to you later, and he is also my man. As for whether you two plan to live together or live separately, it's up to you. Finally, a warm reminder, don't try to escape. If I find out, I'll let you have a good talk with Makujin and let it correct your wrong ideas." After explaining, Rog returned to his office with the Flying Thunder God, and then informed Punisher to go to the forest to pick up the Abomination. The matter with the Abomination has come to an end for the time being. As long as S.H.I.E.L.D. sends the reward, the commission will be completely completed. He now has a total of 73 ninja coins unspent. If he adds the 30 ninja coins entrusted to him, his unspent ninja coins has once again returned to the 3-digit level. With the Sage Body and the 2 accompanying would release ninjutsu, his need for ninjutsu has further decreased. Whether it is attack or control, he now has enough means, and for the time being, there is no lack of firepower or control skills. After thinking about it, he opened the exchange page of the system and focused his attention on the basic ninjutsu on the first page of the exchange page. Transformation Jutsu. One of the 3 ninjutsu taught by the ninja school, the basic of the basic ninjutsu. Ninjas who don't know transformation jutsu are not even qualified to graduate from the ninja school. But it is such a basic ninjutsu that Rog has never exchanged. Clone jutsu, he only exchanged for substitute jutsu, and he also studied substitute jutsu to the extent of instinct. He will definitely not exchange for clone jutsu. He already has shadow clone jutsu, and exchanging for clone jutsu is purely a waste of ninja coins. Compared with clone jutsu, transformation jutsu is undoubtedly much more practical, and the future improvement may be greater. When the shape-shifting technique was unleashed to its limits, it could even cause the chakra primogenitor to reveal a flaw in an intense battle. Just as Rog was thinking about whether he should exchange for the shape-shifting technique, he received a transfer message on his phone. It was a transfer of $100 million. At the same time when the mobile phone received the transfer information, the commission in the system became completed, and the 30 ninja coins were transferred to his account. Transformation jutsu only costs 30 ninja coins, so he finally exchanged for this ninjutsu that may play a great role in the future. Transformation technique: by condensing chakra to change one's appearance, one would be able to transform into someone else. Ordinary methods would not be able to see through it. Other than turning into other people, they could also turn into animals or objects. Whether it was transforming into a human, an animal, or an object, it was only a change in appearance, not a change in essence. This meant that even if he transformed into Hulk's appearance, he would not have the same physique and strength as Hulk. For special agents or spies, the transformation technique could be considered a rare divine skill. But for Rog, who likes to fight head-on, the biggest meaning of the transformation technique is to confuse the enemy. After confirming the chakra operation of the shape-shifting technique, he began his first shape-shifting technique. Bang! When the white smoke dissipated, the person sitting on the chair became Natasha, who Rog had just seen. Just by looking at the appearance, there is no problem. But this jutsu is a bit too weak. The effect of the jutsu will be lifted if I endure a little bit of a violent attack. It is enough to scare people. As for the rest, Rog stopped the messy thoughts in his mind and lifted the effect of the shape-shifting technique. Time flew, and a year passed in the blink of an eye. During this year, Rog continued to receive some commissions from time to time as usual to earn some ninja coins for himself. Most of the time, he spent on the study and mastering of the 2 Kekkei Genkai Sharingan and would release, making these 2 Kekkei Genkai a part of himself. After the end of the day's practice, Rog opened his property panel and looked at his current status. Host, Rog profession, ninja talent, no seal technique, 7 attribute chakra Kekkei Genkai, 3 Tomo Sharingan, would release physique, Senju body, Senju Hashirama, ninjutsu, substitution jutsu, body flicker jutsu, hold jutsu, shadow clone jutsu, flying thunder god, level 2, chakra perception, Rasengan, self-taught, Odama Rasengan, self-taught, summoning, transformation wood release, wood dragon technique, wood human technique lightning release, Chidori, Chidori sharp spear, Chidori flow fire. Release, grand fire annihilation water release, water iron cannon genjutsu, dark walk Sharingan genjutsu, false memory taijutsu, strange strength chakra amount, one tail summon beast, Punisher Frank, Edo Tensei, abomination Bronski unconsumed ninja coins, 256 ninjutsu hasn't changed much, it's still the same ninjutsu from a year ago. In terms of ninja coins, he didn't accept many commissions this year and only earned more than 100 ninja coins. Rog originally intended to let Punisher and Abomination accept the commission together, but he found that the system perfectly avoided this loophole. If he didn't accept and execute the commission himself, the system wouldn't pass it at all. Even if he accepted the commission and arranged Punisher and Abomination to do it, the system would cancel the commission that has passed the judgment and deduct 5 ninja coins from him. After losing a few ninja coins, he decisively dispelled the idea of being lazy and honestly performed the commission himself. Among them, the biggest change is the amount of chakra he has. According to his judgment, with the Senju body, he should be able to get more than 100 calories of chakra after 1 year of practice. But he found that he somewhat underestimated the Senju body from Hashirama. In the past year, his chakra amount has successfully increased from 102 calories to 300 calories. Then, the system changed the measurement unit of chakra amount to tail. As for the current chakra amount, it's equivalent to Ichibi Shikaku's chakra amount, or Kyubi Kurama's chakra amount or Jubi's one tail. He can't judge for the time being. The increase in chakra amount also brought another benefit: the power of the ninjutsu he can use now is far beyond the power of a year ago. In other words, he was now even stronger than before. Chapter 83. Although he now has 256 ninja coins, Rog doesn't have any ninjutsu or items that he particularly wants to exchange for. Even the commission scrolls that he usually consumes the fastest, he still has 5 of them, so he won't have any need to exchange for them in a short time. Just as he was considering whether to continue to expand his business scope, he received a call from Frank the Punisher. Since turning Abomination into his own psychic beast, Rog has formed a team with the 2 of them and asked them to collect some more peculiar metals outside. At the same time, he asked them to occasionally act as messengers of justice and maintain social security in the United States. Simply put, he asked them to find trouble with the local gangs from time to maintain justice and generate income for the firm. Because of their hard work, the firm's operating income has improved significantly, and even attracted the attention of the IRS. If it weren't for S.H.I.E.L.D's silent suppression of this matter, Rog would have been invited to tea by the tax bureau early in the morning. Of course, in return, Rog finally had an informal meeting with S.H.I.E.L.D's director, Nick Fury, and reached a consensus on certain issues. "My lord, we found the hammer that fell from the sky that you were talking about. As you expected, S.H.I.E.L.D's people found the hammer and built a simple research base around the hammer. The hammer the Punisher was talking about was Thor's Mjolnir." Although Rog knew that Thor's hammer would appear in New Mexico, he didn't know when Thor's hammer would fall. So half a year ago, he took the simplest and most crude approach, that is, he sent both Punisher and Abomination to New Mexico and asked them to keep an eye on the situation there. Waiting really paid off. After hanging up the call from Punisher, Rog began to sense the flying Thor technique on Punisher. Thor, we're finally going to meet, I hope you can bring me some unexpected surprises." When Punisher ended the call with Rog, a strong man with long blonde hair suddenly broke into the research base, quickly knocked down the guards in the base, and quickly approached Thor's hammer in the middle of the research base. This guy is good. Obviously, he has received professional combat training. The guards inside can't stop him. The speaker is Abomination Bronsky, who is nearly 4 meters tall. At this time, Abomination has no previous fierce and arrogant attitude. After signing a psychic contract with Rog, Abomination escaped several times, but the results of the escape were not good. The best escape result was that he even saw the border of Canada. At that time, Abomination was trained by the combination of Wood Arhut and Wood Dragon for a whole month, and then he completely gave up. "This is S.H.I.E.L.D's business, we don't have to do anything, we have to make sure that the hammer is not taken away." The Punisher also noticed Thor, who was rampaging in the research base, but he didn't take Thor seriously. Although Thor showed superb combat skills, in Punisher's view, he is at the same level as S.H.I.E.L.D's elite agents. Without his divine power, Thor really has nothing particularly noteworthy. Not only does he not have the power of Thor, but he doesn't even have the super strength and physique that an Asgard should have. Just as Thor invaded the research base, several lightning bolts suddenly flashed in the dark night sky, followed by heavy rain. One person go to the commanding heights, bring a weapon. At this time, the person in charge of this research base is none other than Agent Coulson. Although Thor's invasion caught S.H.I.E.L.D. by surprise, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a professional agency after all. The entire base instantly entered a state of alert, and more agents were chasing Thor. What's the situation? After issuing the order, Coulson came to the command room and asked. The hammer emitted a huge amount of electromagnetic waves. The system can't record it. The equipment can barely maintain it. The interference from this thing is too great. After listening to the report, Coulson took out the walkie-talkie and said, "Barton, talk? Sir, do you want me to stop him? Or do you want to send more people to kill him?" Barton stood in the basket of a crane and said calmly while pulling the composite bow in his hand. "Wait for my order." Coulson did not issue an order to attack and walked quickly in Thor's current direction. After knocking down all the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on the road, Thor finally came to the center of the research base, only a few meters away from Thor's hammer. Looking at Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, who has been with him for more than 1,000 years, a gratified smile appeared on Thor's face. As long as I can lift Thor's hammer again, I can regain the power of Thor. I am Asgard's Thor. Just when Thor thought he was about to end the test given to him by Odin, a strong black man more than 2 meters tall suddenly appeared in front of him and then gave him a heavy punch, knocking him to the ground. "You're quite big." Thor, who was knocked down, quickly stood up and said, "But I've knocked down bigger ones." As soon as his voice fell, Thor's right fist hit the big black man in the face and the two instantly fought. While Thor and the big black man were fighting inextricably, Rog also teleported to the front of the two Punishers. "Sir, are we going to join the battle too?" Abomination immediately asked after seeing Rog appear. Although he had been severely trained by Arhut and would dragon for a month, Abomination was still the same Abomination who was eager to fight. But before the battle, he would ask for Rog's permission. "No, I'll take care of things here. You can continue with your previous entertainment activities." The entertainment that Rog mentioned was the work of the Punishers and Abominations to generate income for the firm. For them, this is a job that will make both of them happy. Regarding Rog's arrangement, the Punishers and Abominations had no objection and left immediately. Looking at Thor, who was hugging and rolling with the big black man in the mud, Rog silently used chakra to perceive Thor's state. "This seal is ridiculously strong. Thor doesn't seem to have much problem on the surface, but in his body, there is an incredibly powerful seal. This seal not only completely sealed the power of Thor in Thor's body, but it also suppressed his Asgard physique to a very low level. That feeling is like suppressing a heavyweight boxing champion with a height of more than 2 meters to the state of a newborn baby." Just when Rog was shocked by the seal in Thor's body, Thor knocked the big black man to the ground with a beautiful flying kick, and then kicked the big black man hard on the head. After doing all this, Thor, covered in mud, came to Thor's hammer Mjolnir and grabbed the handle of Thor's hammer with a smile on his face. Then, there was no then. Tawny used both hands and all the strength of his body, but Thor's hammer remained motionless and showed no signs of moving. After trying for dozens of seconds, Tawny looked incredulously at the night sky shining with lightning and roared at the sky with incomparable grief and indignation. Whether it was Coulson, Barton, or other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, they all silently watched Thor kneeling on Thor's hammer at this time. "Okay, the show is over. Ground units, assault." Looking at Thor, who seemed to have lost his soul, Coulson raised the walkie-talkie and issued new instructions. At this moment, a flying Thor kunai shining with silver-white light flew towards Thor's hammer like lightning. When the flying Thor kunai hit Thor's hammer, Rog appeared in an instant and held the flying Thor kunai. "Is this Thor's hammer?" Rog ignored Thor next to him, and ignored Coulson, Barton, and others who were condescending, and directly held the handle of Thor's hammer, and then his right hand suddenly exerted force. Kacha! Thor's hammer, which had not moved since it fell, suddenly moved. Chapter 84. Once again, it was time for the necessary part of every novel that was published. First of all, I would like to thank all the readers for their support. If it wasn't for all of you, this novel wouldn't have been promoted all the way to the top. It wouldn't have been able to complete the recommendation process and be published on the front page. Thank you to all the readers for your recommendation tickets, collections, comments, and gifts. I've read all the chapters and reviews you left behind. Thank you for all your suggestions. Then, would like to thank the Mr. Long Guang. Even though the recommendation results weren't ideal, he still arranged for a follow-up recommendation. This gave the novel more exposure and allowed Apprentice to complete his dream of being published on the front page. Therefore, I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Long Guang. Thank you for your support and support. Finally, it was time to act pitiful. Readers who had been reading the novel should know that Apprentice wasn't acting pitiful. He was really pitiful. Every day, he would work overtime until midnight and could barely write a chapter when he got home. Therefore, he still owed all the readers 15 chapters. These 15 chapters would be repaid on the second day after the novel was published. He would finish repaying them within 10 days. Because there weren't many updates, many readers chose to read the novel first. Apprentice could understand this. After all, Apprentice did the same when he was reading the novel. However, the data on the first day of publication, which is the first subscription, has a very, very important and decisive effect on the subsequent development of a novel. Therefore, the Apprentice is here to plead with the readers, when the novel is published tomorrow, can you subscribe a chapter first? Just one chapter would be enough. Really, just one chapter would be enough. The chapters after that could be taken care of slowly. However, for the first VIP chapter tomorrow, Apprentice hopes that all the readers would subscribe to it. This was very, very important. Please. Due to his hand speed and his stockpile of manuscripts, the Apprentice was unable to release 10 or 100 chapters like other authors. However, he would release at least 5 chapters tomorrow, which was a 10,000-word update. He hoped that the readers would be a little happier after reading it. Currently, the book's collection data was 244. Normally, the subscription ratio would be around 10:1. However, Apprentice wasn't that ambitious. Because there were some parts that weren't written particularly well, Apprentice would be satisfied if the subscription ratio was around 15:1. As long as the average subscription exceeded 1,600, every 100 subscriptions would add a chapter. If the average subscription exceeded 2,000, the daily minimum would increase from 2 to 3 chapters. If the average order could exceed 3,000, which meant that it was a premium product, the minimum daily order would be at least 4 chapters. Although this didn't seem possible, one had to have some dreams. Perhaps this dream would come true like Infinite Tsukuyomi. Next was the reward system. For the time being, every division master would be rewarded with 1 chapter, which was 10,000 rewards plus 1 chapter. Finally, I'll sell my misery to the readers. The 24-hour subscription result was very, very, very important. Even the readers who were reading books hoped that they would be able to subscribe tomorrow. This was very, very, very important. Please, everyone. Tomorrow at noon, I'll officially update the VIP chapter. Whether it's a hit or a flop, it all depends on the readers. Chapter 85. Thor's hammer didn't move much and the sound it made when it moved was very weak. But even so, the movement of Thor's hammer still shocked everyone present. This hammer can actually be picked up. Coulson, Barton, and other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents all showed an incredulous look. After discovering Thor's hammer, they tried various methods to try to move Thor's hammer. But no matter what method they used, Thor's hammer didn't show any signs of movement, as if it was connected to the whole earth. Coulson, Barton, and others just felt incredible, but as the former owner of Thor's hammer, Thor was completely shocked at this time. No one knows Thor's hammer better than him. It is precisely because of this that he was shocked by the scene in front of him. In Thor's memory, except for himself and Odin, no one can lift Thor's hammer. I have really been abandoned, even Thor's hammer is not willing to recognize me. Thor's hammer would rather be lifted by a stranger than return to my hands. I really am. Rog didn't know what Thor was thinking in his mind, and he was also in a state of confusion. What's going on? Didn't they say that there was Odin's spell on Thor's hammer? Didn't they say that only people with a pure heart and justice can lift Thor's hammer? Didn't they say that as long as you can lift Thor's hammer, you can have Thor's power? Is there a bug in Odin's spell? Before Rog could figure out what was going on, Thor's hammer in his hand suddenly became extremely heavy, and then it fell directly to the ground with a bang. At the moment when Thor's hammer fell to the ground, a blue lightning bolt as thick as a bucket fell from the sky and directly struck Rog. Boom! The lightning directly hit the Thor's hammer on the ground, and the raging electric current created a tornado-like airflow, blowing the people around it away. When the lightning was about to hit him, Rog left the place with the flying thunder god and returned to the small hill outside the base. At this time, he was very glad that he had left a Thor kunai here before he went to the research base. The speed of that bolt of lightning far exceeded his expectations. If he hadn't left behind the flying Thor kunai in advance, he would have been the first person to be struck by lightning while raising the Thor's hammer. Although Rog was far away from Thor's hammer, the lightning did not seem to intend to let him go. The night sky, which was already filled with thunder and lightning, was suddenly enveloped by bolts of lightning. The entire night sky became as bright as day. Without giving Rog any time to think, the lightning in the night sky seemed to have a life of its own, attacking him one after another. Boom 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 boom, he was inexplicably struck by so many lightning bolts, and each one was thicker than the last. Rog did not hesitate and made a decision in an instant. Flying Thor. Because there were no other Flying Thor spells around the research base, Rog could not repeatedly jump around the lightning bolts. The coordinates he was teleported to this time was the Punisher, who had already left this place. At this time, the Punisher and the Abomination were heading to a nearby town, and were discussing which city to go to next to generate income. When Rog reappeared, they were slightly stunned. Then, they understood why Rog appeared. The next second after Rog appeared, several bolts of lightning suddenly fell from the night sky and hit the Punisher and the Abomination in front of Rog. As for Rog himself, he returned to the small hill outside the research base through the Flying Thor. Most of the lightning bolts struck the small hill, making the originally normal-looking hill look like it had been bombarded by missiles. As for the remaining lightning bolts, they struck the Punisher and the Abomination. One of them had a body of filth, and the other had thick skin, so Rog was not particularly worried about the condition of the two of them. After confirming that there were no more lightning bolts in the night sky, he pulled out the Flying Thor kunai from the ground, and then slowly walked towards the research base. Don't touch things that don't belong to you, or you'll be struck by lightning. Although Rog had not yet figured out what happened just now, he had already made up his mind to not touch the Thor's hammer for no reason. And in the short period of time when he mentioned the Thor's hammer, he felt as if he was being watched by a great existence. But he was not sure if this gaze came from Odin, the father of the gods, or from an existence he did not know for the time being. Anyway, no matter what, Mjolnir was currently on his list of things that he should never touch unless absolutely necessary. After coming to the research base again, Rog enjoyed the warm hospitality of S.H.I.E.L.D. More than a dozen heavily armed guards raised their weapons and aimed at his head. Don't do anything stupid, just inform your supervisor Coulson directly. Although these S.H.I.E.L.D. guards did not know the true identity of Rog, they silently reported the situation after hearing the name of Coulson. It didn't take long for Coulson to walk out of the base and come directly to Rog. What are you doing here? Coulson looked at Rog with a little vigilance. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. is now in a friendly cooperation stage with Rog, he knows very well that this so-called cooperation may be suspended at any time. I heard that you found a very strange hammer, so I came to take a look. By the way, if you don't mind, I want to take the guy inside. Coulson didn't know the true identity of Thor at all. They just thought of Thor as a secret agent of a certain country. As for why this secret agent took the risk of robbing the hammer, they haven't figured it out yet. At this time, Thor is being held in a temporary interrogation room. He is covered with mud and is in a complex state of loss and shock. Loss is because he found that he had lost the recognition of Thor's hammer and lost the hope of becoming Thor again and returning to Asgard. Shock is because he found that Thor's hammer can be lifted by a Midgardian, that is, an Earthling, which is something that even Asgard people can't do. If Rog hadn't been attacked by lightning, Thor would have even thought that Thor's hammer had found a new master for himself. Just when Thor was full of doubts, Loki in a handsome suit suddenly appeared in front of him. Loki, why are you here? Seeing his brother suddenly appear in front of him, a look of hope appeared on Thor's face. I came to see you. Loki said in a low tone. What's the matter? Is something wrong with Jotunheim? Let me explain to my father. Thor said in a hurry, he had never been so eager to see his father. But Loki's next words immediately made him fall into the abyss of despair. Father is dead. Chapter 86. Loki's words were like a bolt from the blue, striking Saul's body, causing him to be completely stunned. Father is dead? Odin, the father of all gods, is dead? Then, uncontrollable sadness and annoyance welled up in his heart. What? Thor asked in an extremely sad tone. Banishing you, coupled with the threat of war, made him unable to bear it any longer. Don't blame yourself, I know you love him, I want to tell him, but he won't listen. Listening to Loki's words, Thor couldn't help but shed tears from the corners of his eyes. Knowing that you can no longer lift Thor's hammer, but still putting Thor's hammer beside you, this is too cruel. The burden of the throne now falls on me. Then can I go home? Thor asked in a pleading tone that he had never used before. The condition of the armistice agreement is that you must be banished. Yes, but we can find a way. Mother also forbids you to go back. Although they grew up in the same family, it has to be said that in terms of IQ, Thor is suppressed by Loki. But this is also where Loki's talent lies. After all, people with too low IQ can't become the god of trickery. See you never, brother. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Thank you for coming. After completely fooling Thor, Loki left the interrogation room with satisfaction and came to the vicinity of Thor's hammer. After a friendly exchange, Coulson finally agreed to let Rog take Thor away. Just as they were heading to the interrogation room, Rog saw Loki trying to lift Thor's hammer. That guy is trying to lift Thor's hammer, aren't you going to do anything about it? At this time, Loki was in a state of magic invisibility, and the surrounding shield staff did not notice his existence at all. Which guy? Coulson followed Rog's gaze, but he saw nothing. It's that guy in a suit with black hair. Although Rog had never seen Loki before, he was 100% sure that the person who was trying to lift Thor's hammer was Loki. Forget it, there's no point in telling you. After saying that, Rog went straight to the aisle near Thor's hammer and said to Loki below, "You're Thor's brother, right? I think it's better if you don't lift Mjolnir. You'll be struck by lightning if you do." Loki didn't expect that someone would be able to see through his invisibility spell. What surprised him even more was that Rog actually knew about his identity and Thor's hammer. "Who are you?" Loki withdrew his hands and silently put them into his suit jacket, ready to pull out the dagger at any time. "My name is Rog, I'm a ninja." Ninja? What kind of occupation was this? Loki thought that Rog was a sorcerer like himself, so he could see through his invisibility spell so easily. In the eyes of Coulson and others, Rog seemed to be talking to the air at this time. But as an experienced agent, Coulson immediately reacted and quietly arranged for shield staff to scan the environment near Thor's hammer. After looking at Rog carefully, Loki didn't say a word and turned away. A strange guy came out of nowhere, and he didn't look strong at all. He was a low-level existence that didn't need to be cared about at all. Rog didn't stop Loki from leaving, but silently observed the energy around his body that couldn't be detected by the naked eye with Sharingan, and memorized the way this energy worked that he had never seen before. Is this Asgard's magic? Interesting. When Loki's figure completely disappeared, Rog turned to Coulson and said, "That guy is gone." Next, it was a routine release procedure. The only thing worth noting was that when leaving the research base, Thor silently took a notebook placed on the table. "I didn't expect you to have talent in this area." Shield staff didn't notice Thor's little move at all, allowing him to easily take away the notebook that belonged to Dr. Jane Foster. "Why can you lift Mjolnir? And, why did you come to save me?" "These questions, I'll answer you later. What you need now is to change into clean clothes and solve your food problem by the way." More than an hour later, in a 24-hour chain restaurant in Anticapuant, Rog, Thor, and Dr. Jane Foster looked at each other and maintained a strange silence. "Who are you?" Thor took the lead to break the silence. "My name is Rog, I'm a private detective." Rog didn't say that he was a ninja, because if he said that he was a ninja, he would have to explain what a ninja was later. This would make the topic more complicated. Private detective? Obviously, whether it was a ninja or a private detective, Thor didn't understand either. You can understand it as a person who gets paid and then helps others solve their problems. Rog explained simply. I see, it's similar to mercenaries. Although Asgard didn't have a private detective, there were mercenaries, so Thor quickly understood the profession of a private detective. Strictly speaking, private detectives and mercenaries were two completely different professions. But no one cared about these small details now. Why can you lift Mjolnir? This is not something that Midgard people can do. You're a bit of regional discrimination. Although Asgard has a longer history, Midgard is not a backward place. And whether or not you can lift Mjolnir has nothing to do with Asgard. As long as your father's spell recognizes it, anyone can lift it. Dr. Forster, who was sitting next to Thor, looked at Thor and Rog with a confused expression. She knew every word that Thor and Rog said, but she didn't understand the meaning. My father. Thor's expression suddenly became lonely. I saw your brother just now, he's quite handsome, but a bit cunning, he's not an honest person. Loki has always been like this, he likes to play pranks since he was young. When he mentioned Loki, Thor's lonely face showed a hint of relief. Looking at Thor's current appearance, Rog couldn't help but sigh. They were both raised by the same parents, how could their IQs be so different? He had intended to remind Saul tactfully and let him know that Odin was still alive. But now, he gave up on that plan. Your father is not dead yet. Don't underestimate him. He is the father of all gods, a powerful existence in the entire universe. Chapter 87. My father isn't dead? Thor's voice became agitated. Of course. You have to have some faith in your father. The name Father of Gods is not just a title. Without enough strength, the others in the universe will not recognize the title of Father of Gods. Hearing this, Thor calmed down a little and began to think seriously. After eliminating some subjective thoughts, he felt more and more that Rog's words were correct. The main reason was that Loki had too many bad records, so after calming down, Thor quickly noticed the loopholes. Then how can I go back? Thor asked the question he was most concerned about. I don't know. Thor thought that Rog knew how to get him back to Asgard, but Rog's answer instantly extinguished his hope. Actually, I also want to go to Asgard. So if you find your own strength, I hope you can bring me along. The reason why Rog said so much to Thor was purely because he also wanted to go to Asgard and see a world outside of Earth. The universe is so big, I want to see it. In addition, he also wanted to go to Asgard to see a civilization that was completely different from Earth, especially when it came to combat and magic. You want to go to Asgard? That's right. Looking at Rog's serious face, Thor seriously thought about it. Bringing a Midgardian to Asgard was not in line with Asgard's rules, but it was not a particularly serious matter. After thinking seriously for a few minutes, Thor finally made a decision. If I can return to Asgard, I can bring you along. However, I have a condition. I hope you can protect the people here from harm during this period of time. Although Thor was not as smart as Loki, he had lived with Loki for more than 1,000 years after all. So after figuring out some things, he knew what Loki would do next. After losing Thor's power for a few days, he finally began to understand what Odin had often told him before, the responsibility of being a king. No problem. Not to mention just protecting the people here, even if Thor asked him to deal with Loki, he would not refuse. After reaching an agreement with Thor, Rog left the restaurant and booked a room in the town's best hotel, and paid the room fee for a week in one lump sum. Rog wanted to book a room for Thor, but after thinking of Thor's Dr. Jane Foster, he silently gave up the idea. With Thor's appearance, even if he was unfamiliar with the place and had no money, he would never live on the streets. After all, this kind of man with a strong body, handsome face, and long blonde hair was very popular with the opposite sex in this country. In the next few days, Thor stayed with Dr. Jane Foster, teaching Dr. Jane Foster about the universe, and at the same time, trying to learn about the Earth. In the evening, Thor usually stayed with Dr. Jane Foster. During the day, he would appear beside Rog. Although he had lost the power of Thor that he was proud of, and Asgard's innate strong physique had been suppressed to the level of ordinary people, Thor did not sink because of this. It was because he was now in the weakest period of his life that he needed strength more. Although he did not have the strength of the past, Thor quickly adapted to his current state and showed the fighting qualities that a top warrior should have. That punch just now was good, as expected of Asgard's former Thor. In order to make the battle more fair, Rog did not use chakra, nor did he open Sharingan. Your fighting skills are also very good, and there are not many people in Asgard's royal guards who can have your skills. While Rog and Thor were learning from each other, Thor's friends, 3 warriors of Sengoku and Sif came to Earth with the help of Heimdall. If possible, Sif and others would not want to go to Earth in a way that violates the king's orders. But there is no other way, who told Loki to sit on the throne of Asgard now. The huge energy of Bifrost connecting the 2 worlds not only attracted the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D., but also Rog's attention. That thing just now should be Bifrost, it looks like someone is looking for you. Rog pointed to the funnel-like spiral cloud in the distance. Yes, it's Bifrost that is teleporting. Thor's eyes instantly became serious, looking at the spiral cloud in the distance with a dignified expression. Thor thought that the person who came this time was sent by Loki, but when he saw that it was Sif and others who were teleporting, the dignified expression on his face disappeared in an instant. In Asgard, in addition to his parents and Loki, he trusts the 3 warriors of Sengoku and Sif the most. However, before he had time to talk to Sif and others, Bifrost opened again, sending the real enemy over. At the end of Bifrost's second teleportation, Rog used Chakra's perception to perceive the target of the teleportation. This almost cheat-like energy intensity is worthy of the destroyer specially built by Odin. Get ready for battle, the destroyer is here. Rog silently reminded Thor. When the flying dust raised by the teleportation gradually dissipated, Coulson and others, who had rushed over, finally saw the true appearance of the destroyer. Is it a robot made by Stark? I don't know, that guy wouldn't tell me anything. Coulson took the handheld loudspeaker from the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent next to him, came to the destroyer, and said loudly, "Hello, your weapons and equipment are not registered, please identify yourself immediately." The advancing destroyer stopped silently after hearing Coulson's words, and then opened the armor on its face. Just when Coulson and others thought that the destroyer would identify itself according to their request, they saw the flame-like orange-red light shining on the destroyer's body. Then, there was a powerful high-temperature beam of light. Boom! It only took a few seconds for the destroyer to blast the S.H.I.E.L.D. vehicle in front of him into wreckage, and then he walked straight towards the town. Meet the enemy outside the town, you should know better than me what kind of power the destroyer has. If we fight in the town, even if we win, the town will probably be gone. Sensing the power of the high-temperature beam just fired by the destroyer, Rog turned to Thor and said, "We are responsible for stopping the destroyer, you are responsible for evacuating the town's residents." Thor did not refuse Rog's suggestion to meet the enemy outside the town, but he did not intend to let Rog participate in this battle. This is Asgard's business, and it should be solved by Asgard's people. No, the weak guy is responsible for evacuating the residents. You are the weakest here, so you are responsible. Chapter 88. The weakest guy was in charge of evacuating the town's residents? Thor had lived for more than 1,000 years, but this was the first time he had heard someone say this to him. I like this guy, ha ha ha. Volstagg, one of the 3 warriors of Sengoku, patted Thor on the shoulder, then put his axe on his shoulder and laughed as he walked out of the town. Being weak is a sin. You can slowly get used to this now. Fandral, one of the three warriors of Sengoku, did not laugh like Volstagg, but he turned his head and gave Thor a look that said, "You know what I mean." As for Hogg, he did not say anything. He just sighed silently, then took the warhammer in his hand and followed Volstagg, who was the first to leave. Sif had wanted to fight the destroyer with the three warriors of Sengoku, but after seeing Thor's helpless expression, she decided to stay and evacuate the town's residents with Thor. After saying this, Rog used the body flicker technique to leave the town. He was not willing to let go of the opportunity to fight the destroyer. The destroyer was an ultimate weapon personally created by the Father of Gods, Odin. It was originally created to resist the invasion of Earth by the celestial gods. But after its creation, the most important thing the destroyer did was to guard Asgard's palace treasury. Although the destroyer had not officially fought against the celestial gods, it was enough to make people pay 120% attention to the ultimate weapon that Odin had entrusted with such a heavy responsibility, even if it did not have any dazzling achievements. The destroyer's main material was URU metal, and its energy source was Odin's divine power. This meant that the destroyer not only had an incomparably strong defense, but also had an almost inexhaustible energy. Looking at the destroyer's height of more than 6 meters and its body that was emitting a silver-white light, the first thought that came to Rog's mind was not that the destroyer was very strong, but that it should be very valuable. Just as Rog's mind was filled with thoughts that he should not have had, the destroyer opened its face armor, and then a powerful high-temperature light beam shot out. Boom! The high-temperature beam hit the ground where Rog had just stood, leaving a 3-meter-wide crater in the ground. As for Rog himself, just as the high-temperature beam was about to hit him, he used the body flicker technique to change his position. After dodging the high-temperature beam of the destroyer, Rog bit his right thumb and slapped it directly to the ground. Spirit communication technique. With his right palm as the center, a complicated psychic formation appeared on the ground, followed by 2 clouds of white smoke of different sizes. The Punisher and Abomination were summoned. The Punishers and Abominations were originally attacking a notorious gang and were about to achieve victory. However, at this critical moment, they were summoned by Rog. Ever since they became Rog's spiritual beasts, this was the first time they were summoned in battle. The Punisher did not think too much about the fact that he had summoned it out. His expression was as calm as ever. Compared to the Punisher's calm expression, the Abomination was incomparably excited. He could finally enjoy the thrill of battle. Finally, I don't have to bully those weaklings anymore. Finally, he could enjoy the battle to his heart's content. After listening to Rog's instructions, the Abomination rushed toward the destroyer without saying a word. At the same time, it let out a series of excited roars. Just as the Abomination was about to pounce on the destroyer like a hungry wolf, a dull and heavy sound suddenly came from its body. Bang! The Abomination did not realize what had happened at all. It only felt an indescribable pain in its abdomen, and then it was blasted away. Facing the menacing Abomination, the destroyer did not do much. It did not even continue to shoot the high-temperature beam. The only thing the destroyer did was to raise its right leg and kick the Abomination after the Abomination entered its attack range. Then, the Abomination was kicked away. After flying more than 100 meters, the Abomination fell from the air and slammed into the ground. The destroyer was actually so strong? Seeing the Abomination being kicked away so easily, Rog realized that he seemed to have underestimated the destroyer. If it was him who was kicked just now, Rog couldn't help but take a breath. However, he wouldn't be kicked by the destroyer like the Abomination. Only the Abomination, whose mind is full of fighting, would fight the destroyer in such a reckless way. After taking a look at the Abomination who was kicked out, Rog turned his attention back to the destroyer. Facing the destroyer, a fighting machine with almost no obvious shortcomings, it is the stupidest tactic to confront it with brute force. The Abomination has proved this very well. In that case, let's use speed to determine the outcome. Rog opened Sharingan in an instant, and then threw a flying Thor kunai at the destroyer. Although the destroyer saw the flying Thor kunai, it didn't take the flying Thor kunai seriously. In its judgment, the flying Thor kunai is the kind of weak attack that will not cause any injury even if it is hit. Clang! The flying Thor kunai hit the destroyer's chest without any suspense, making a crisp sound of metal collision, and then bounced away. At the moment when the flying Thor kunai was bounced away, Rog's flying thunder god came to the front of the destroyer and grasped the flying Thor kunai with his left hand. Odama Rasengan. An Odama Rasengan with a diameter of 1 meter appeared in Rog's right hand, and then hit the destroyer's chest fiercely. Although the destroyer has a certain degree of self-thinking, Rog's attack is completely beyond its scope of understanding. The destroyer didn't even have time to launch a high-temperature beam before it was hit by Rog's Odama Rasengan. The twisting and tearing ability of Odama Rasengan fell completely on the destroyer, and the 6-meter-tall destroyer flew out in an irregular spiral shape. The destroyer's limbs and body were quickly twisted, as if the whole body was disrupted and then reorganized randomly. However, the destroyer that was knocked away quickly stood up again, and under Rog's gaze, the twisted limbs and body were restored to their original appearance. Is this okay? The destroyer's characteristic structure makes it immune to the damage of Odama Rasengan. Except for making it a little embarrassed, Odama Rasengan did not cause much damage to it. Odama Rasengan did not play the expected effect, and Rog did not care too much about this. He raised his hand and used another ninjutsu. Wood Release, Wood Dragon Jutsu. The destroyer is not Abomination or Hulk, so when he used Wood Dragon Jutsu, he did not hold back at all. Nearly 20 meters long, the long hook-nosed Wood Dragon sprang out of the ground, like a python that catches its prey, tightly entwining the 6-meter-tall destroyer. Chapter 89. It was the same entanglement effect, but when the Wood Dragon entangled the destroyer, it was obviously more strenuous than when it entangled the Hulk and the Abomination. This also caused Rog to have to increase the output of chakra of the Wood Dragon technique. The destroyer was more difficult to deal with than the Abomination and the Hulk because there was no such thing as physical strength in the destroyer. Therefore, the longer the destroyer was entangled with the Abomination and the Hulk, the less physical strength they had. Although the Wood Dragon could not absorb physical strength from the destroyer, in addition to absorbing the target's physical strength, the Wood Dragon could also absorb the energy in the target's body. However, when the Wood Dragon began to absorb the energy in the destroyer's body, an unexpected scene happened. The Wood Dragon successfully absorbed the energy in the destroyer's body, but as soon as the energy from Odin was absorbed, the nearly 20-meter-long Wood Dragon burned. In an instant, the hook-nosed Wood Dragon turned into a fire dragon. This sudden flame not only exceeded Rog's expectations but also caused the 3 warriors of Sengoku behind him to look at each other. On the way here, the 3 warriors of Sengoku first witnessed the Abomination descend from the sky and then the destroyer being sent flying by Rog. When they finally arrived at the battlefield where Rog and the destroyer were fighting, they saw the Wood Dragon entangling the destroyer instantly turn into a fire dragon. Although the 3 warriors of Sengoku had never fought against the destroyer, they knew very well how powerful this ultimate weapon that Odin had personally created was. But at this moment, they watched helplessly as the destroyer was restrained by Rog, an earthling. Although the Wood Dragon entangling the destroyer had turned into a fire dragon, the Wood Dragon showed no signs of burning or breaking. The reason why the Wood Dragon could still entangle the destroyer tightly was that Rog was frantically outputting his chakra. After his chakra unit changed from a card to a tail, he thought that he would not need to worry about the amount of chakra for a long time. But now, he realized that his idea was a little too naive. After maintaining it for more than 10 seconds, Rog decisively gave up on maintaining the Wood Dragon spell. Without the infusion of Rog's chakra, the burning wooden dragon quickly showed signs of burning. Its nearly 20-meter-long body was continuously corroded by the flames and was torn apart into pieces of burning wood. Seeing this, the 3 warriors of Sengoku could not help but sigh. If the Wood Dragon had held on for a while longer, perhaps the destroyer would have stopped because of the lack of energy. Although this possibility wasn't high, it wasn't impossible. When the wooden dragon wrapped around the destroyer shattered into pieces of burning wood, Loki, who was sitting on the throne of Asgard's palace, suddenly stood up. This earthling was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Loki, who was holding the Gungnir, looked at Rog seriously through the destroyer's perspective. He quickly made a decision and headed to the Bifrost. Without the entanglement of the wood dragon, the destroyer also regained its ability to move. Just as the destroyer was about to use the high-temperature light beam to eliminate Rog, the obstacle, Rog in front of it silently formed a seal. Forming seals was not necessary for Rog. It was just that in order to make the following scene more ritualistic, he decided to add such a link at the last minute. The moment Rog finished forming the seal, a huge wooden figure more than 25 meters tall crawled out of the ground like an ancient beast. Mokutan wood puppet technique. Looking at this huge wooden figure that was 4 times its height, the destroyer's self-awareness immediately made an extremely dangerous judgment. Since absorbing the energy in the destroyer's body would cause the wood dragon to catch fire, there was no need to use the wood dragon to absorb energy. If the advantage of the wood dragon spell was to control the target and absorb energy, then the advantage of the wood puppet technique was its extremely strong physical influence. Even if you have a body made of URU metal. Even if you have Odin's divine power as a source of energy. Today, I will definitely reform you. With a thought, the godlike wooden figure Arhat raised his fists. Boom 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 boom, F***CK tactics and strategies, and F***CK combat skills. The bigger the fist, is the truth. Under Rog's control, the wooden figure Arhat seemed to have transformed into a bodhisattva praising the Gatling gun of Nanwu. Its fists were like 6 big, clean pipes that were spinning 3,600 times per second. Great compassion to the world, physical conversion to my Buddha. Clearly under the scorching sun, the 3 warriors of Sengoku felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Is this guy really human? He must be an evil god that had transmigrated from a different dimension. How could this kind of person appear in Midgard? He should be conquering the universe, not staying in this weak chicken country where the average combat power is less than 5. At this time, Rog did not know what the 3 warriors of Sengoku were thinking. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to blast the annoying silver-white human-shaped self-propelled armor in front of him into the block form that metal should have. The sound of missiles exploding continued to ring out, and the ground continued to vibrate with palpitating vibrations. Coulson and the others, who had first encountered the destroyer, also rushed over at this time. Then, like the 3 warriors of Sengoku, they looked at Rog, who was emitting a light blue light all over his body, with a shocked expression. In order to maintain the tyrannical and unreasonable influence of the wooden figure Arhat, Rog almost operated his chakra to the limit. Time passed little by little, and when the 25-meter-tall wooden figure Arhat finally stopped waving his fists, what appeared in front of them was a deep circular pit with a diameter of tens of meters. As for the originally majestic destroyer, its original appearance was completely unrecognizable. Even the orange-red light in the destroyer's body that seemed to never be extinguished had completely disappeared. It's finally over. When the wooden figure Arhat stopped, the people present could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. After confirming that there were no energy fluctuations on the destroyer, Rog also ended the wooden figure technique and gasped for breath. Such an intense output of chakra made him experience what it meant to be tired after being impulsive. If it were not for the sake of maintaining his image, he would not even want to stand now. He just wanted to lie on the ground and rest. Just when everyone thought that the matter had come to an end, the hammer of Thor, more than 10 kilometers away, suddenly soared into the sky and flew toward the town at a speed faster than the speed of sound. Then, a thundercloud quickly gathered in the sky, and a giant lightning bolt more than 10 meters thick struck down fiercely, making a thunderous sound that resounded for tens of kilometers. Chapter 90. After the giant lightning bolt, a powerful aura instantly enveloped the entire town. Even Rog and the others, who were a few kilometers away from the town, could clearly feel the godlike aura. Thor had returned. Sensing the powerful aura coming from the town, Rog revealed a puzzled expression. How could he retrieve Thor's power just by evacuating the townspeople? He didn't know what had happened, but he was sure that Thor had successfully retrieved Thor's power. He was even stronger than before he lost Thor's power. Thor's right hand gripped Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, and his clothes turned into Thor's armor. His red cloak fluttered even though there was no wind. Blue lightning bolts that were visible to the naked eye were swimming around his body like electric snakes. Sif and Dr. Forster couldn't help but smile when they saw Thor turn back into Thor. Sif was happy because the Thor she knew had returned. The Thor who had led them to defeat one enemy after another had returned. Dr. Forster was happy because she had witnessed Thor's resurrection from the dead. Thor's chest had been pierced, and he had turned back into a mythical figure. After regaining Thor's power, Thor wasn't as excited as he had imagined. Instead, he looked at Loki calmly. "I thought you just wanted to prove that you were stronger than me, but now I realize that I don't know you at all. I can tolerate your usual pranks, and I can also overlook your usual excessive actions. But you shouldn't joke about your father's life, and you shouldn't start a war between Asgard and Jotunheim just to satisfy your desire for the throne. Loki, you've really made a mistake this time." Thor didn't expect his younger brother to appear behind him and pierce his chest with the Gungnir while he was evacuating the townspeople. "I am also the heir to the throne. I can make Asgard the ruler of the 9 realms. I can let the entire universe know of Asgard's power. I will prove to my father that I am the most suitable person to become Asgard's king. It's not my fault, it's the world's." Loki still didn't think there was anything wrong with what he had done. Become Asgard's king, destroy Jotunheim's frost giants, and lead Asgard's army to conquer the 9 realms. Listening to Loki's Chinibu speech, Roger suddenly felt that his usual Chinibu actions were not worth mentioning compared to Loki's. After sensing that Saul had regained the power of the thunder god, he dragged his tired body back to the town and caught up with Loki's Chinibu speech. "No, you will never become Asgard's king." As soon as his voice fell, the Thor's hammer in Thor's hand flew towards Loki like lightning. Then, it directly pierced through Loki's illusion. "He left a long time ago. He should be there now." Rog pointed outside the town. When Thor looked in the direction of Rog's finger, he saw the unique teleportation beam of Bifrost. As Thor's younger brother, Loki knows Thor's character better than anyone else. So after Thor regained control of Thor's power, he left the town as soon as possible. What Saul and the others saw was nothing more than an illusion he left behind. When he returned to the town, Rog was almost deceived by Loki's illusion. If he didn't open his Sharingan and observe carefully, he wouldn't have been able to see that it was an illusion. The one who controls Bifrost now should still be Heimdall. He can help us return to Asgard. Only the guardian sword in Heimdall's hand can open Bifrost. So after seeing Loki leave through Bifrost, Thor instinctively thought that Bifrost was still under Heimdall's control. But he ignored a small problem, that is, it was the guardian sword that opened Bifrost, not Heimdall himself. As long as one has the guardian sword, anyone can open Bifrost. I hope so. Rog was not as optimistic as Thor. If his guess is correct, the one who controls the guardian sword and Bifrost is definitely not Heimdall. As Rog guessed, the one who is guarding Bifrost is not Heimdall, but a frost giant. As for Heimdall, he is firmly frozen in ice at this time. After returning to Asgard through the Bifrost Bridge, Loki came to the 2 frost giants guarding the Bifrost Bridge. Phew! Phew! 2 indestructible energy beams shot out from the tip of the Gungnir, directly turning the 2 frost giants in front of Loki into an atomic state. This is not the first time he killed a frost giant. Before leaving Asgard, he used the same method to kill the frost giant king, Laufey. Laufey never thought that he would die at the hands of his own son, Loki. The weapon that killed him was actually the Gungnir of his old enemy, Odin. If time could go back, Laufey would never have trusted Loki so easily, even if he was his own son. After taking care of the two frost giants guarding Bifrost, Loki went to the control panel of Bifrost and summoned the frost giant's divine artifact, the Chest of Frost. When the Chest of Frost, shining with dark blue light, appeared in Loki's hand, his skin became more like a frost giant. Only those with the bloodline of the frost giants can use the Chest of Frost. Just as Loki was trying to aim Bifrost at Jotunheim, he heard a crisp sound of ice breaking. Then, a tall figure appeared behind him and sent him flying with a punch. The one who sent Loki flying was none other than Heimdall. The reason why Heimdall became the guardian of Bifrost was not only because he had Heimdall's eyes that could perceive all things, but also because of his own strength. The guardian of Bifrost was Asgard's first line of defense. If it weren't for a moment of carelessness, Heimdall wouldn't have been frozen by Loki's Chest of Frost, and he wouldn't have lost the guardian sword that controlled Bifrost. As soon as Heimdall sent Loki flying, he heard Thor's shout. Heimdall ignored Loki, who was sent flying, and pointed Bifrost at Thor on Earth, opening the interstellar teleportation. In the next second, the exit of Bifrost shone with a rainbow-like light. In the rainbow-colored light, figures emerged one after another. Thor, Sif, the three warriors of Sengoku, and Rog. In the end, Thor fulfilled his promise and brought Rog to Asgard. They saw Heimdall on the control panel and Loki holding the Gungnir. Chapter 91. Seeing Thor, Rog, and the others appear one by one, Loki's mood instantly became as cold as the chest of ice. If it was just Saul, he might not be a match for him. What's more, there was Rog next to Thor, who could defeat the destroyer. At this time, Loki began to regret going to Earth. Why did he stop Thor from evacuating the town's residents? Stopping Thor was one thing, but why did he have to add insult to injury? If he didn't add insult to injury, all of this wouldn't have happened. Loki, surrender. Now that things had developed to this point, Thor was still unwilling to force Loki into a desperate situation. No matter what, Loki was his younger brother, a brother who had accompanied him for thousands of years. Although this brother wasn't very obedient and would turn into a snake to scare him, he still couldn't be ruthless. Surrender? Why should I surrender? I am the evil god, Asgard, and the future king of the Nine Lands. As soon as his voice fell, the chest of ice appeared in Loki's left hand. In an instant, Loki's skin turned dark blue like a frost giant, and an extremely cold aura that seemed to be able to freeze the soul gushed out from his body. The moment Loki summoned the chest of ice, Thor didn't hesitate and directly threw Thor's hammer at Loki. Thor's hammer had just flown a short distance when it was hit by the ice energy from the chest of ice. In the blink of an eye, an icicle several meters in diameter appeared in front of Thor and the others. Thor's hammer was completely frozen by the icicle. After freezing Thor's hammer, Loki didn't stop attacking. Instead, he increased the energy output of the chest of ice. Although Loki didn't like to use force to solve problems, at a time like this, he didn't mind using this barbaric and violent method to get rid of all the people in front of him. As the divine artifact of the frost giants, the chest of ice had the power to freeze an entire planet. Although Loki couldn't unleash the full power of the chest of frost, it wouldn't be a problem for him to freeze Bifrost. Using the chest of frost, Loki regained control of the situation and picked up Odin's Gungnir. He held the box of frost in his left hand and the spear of eternity in his right. Under the buff of these two divine tools, Loki instantly reached the peak of his life. The Bifrost Hall wasn't very wide to begin with. After being attacked by the chest of frost, most of the area was covered in huge blocks of ice. The energy from the casket of frost and the energy from the Gungnir constantly flew across the Bifrost, forcing Thor, Rog, and the others to temporarily leave the Bifrost Hall. Originally, Loki did not expect to deal with Thor, Rog, and the others here. From beginning to end, he only had one goal. Control the Bifrost and destroy Jotunheim. Although Loki was also a frost giant, he didn't have any good impression of the frost giants who were like barbarians in Jotunheim, let alone treat them as his own kind. After forcing Thor, Rog, and the others out of the Bifrost Hall, Loki first used the chest of frost to freeze the entrance of the Bifrost. Then, he went to the control panel of the Bifrost and aimed the muzzle of the Bifrost at Jotunheim. Interstellar teleportation wasn't the only function of the Bifrost. Strictly speaking, this wasn't even the main reason why the Bifrost was designed. The Bifrost was an out-and-out weapon of war. It was an ultimate weapon of war with the power to destroy a planet. When the Bifrost's power was maximized, the energy beam of the Bifrost could directly penetrate an entire planet. As for the interstellar teleportation function of the Bifrost, it was only to quickly send Asgard's army to the enemy planet. Why did the Bifrost's teleportation exit look like a cannon barrel? It was because the Bifrost was built according to the specifications of a war weapon. I didn't expect your brother to be more courageous than you. He destroyed an entire race just like that. How domineering. Rog didn't interfere in the battle between Thor and Loki. Even when Loki attacked him with the chest of frost and the Gungnir, he didn't have any intention of attacking Loki. The two of them had a conflict, so why should an outsider like him interfere? In the end, this was all a family conflict. Although the consequences of this family conflict were a little serious, no matter what, this was a family matter between Thor and Loki. Loki wasn't like this before. Is inheriting the throne really that important to him? Until now, Thor still couldn't understand why Loki wanted the throne so much that he didn't hesitate to sacrifice his life for it. After sighing silently, Thor began to summon Thor's hammer in the Bifrost. Under Thor's forceful summoning, the frozen Thor's hammer finally broke free from the shackles of the icicles and returned to his hand. I can't let Loki continue to make mistakes. As soon as his voice fell, Thor raised the Thor's hammer in his hand and slammed it into the Bifrost's deck. The energy of the Bifrost came from Asgard, and the deck was both a passage and an energy transmission channel. As long as the deck was destroyed, the Bifrost would lose all its energy supply, and naturally, it wouldn't be able to continue shooting energy torrents to destroy Jotunheim. Are you sure you want to do this? If you destroy the bridge, you won't be able to see Dr. Forster again. Rog silently reminded Thor. After hearing Roger's words, Saul's action of smashing the bridge paused for a second before he started again. Under Thor's full attack, the solid deck began to crack. As Thor continued to attack, the cracks began to expand, spreading like a spider web. Just as Thor was desperately attacking the Bifrost's deck, a golden energy beam flew out of the Bifrost and hit Thor like lightning, sending him flying. When Thor began to destroy the Bifrost's deck, Loki noticed this. So he broke the ice wall at the entrance of the hall and walked out with the box of ice and the Gungnir. Before Jotunheim was destroyed, he wouldn't let anyone destroy the Bifrost. He wanted to prove to everyone that he was the most suitable person to inherit Asgard's throne. After being sent flying by Loki, Saul quickly got up and leaped high into the air. "Forgive me, Loki." Seeing Thor jump and raise the Thor's hammer in his hand, Loki instantly read Thor's thoughts. Thor's hammer finally fell on the Bifrost's deck. Boom! An indescribable explosion of energy sounded, and a powerful energy storm instantly destroyed the Bifrost's deck. The Bifrost was destroyed. The energy storm destroyed the Bifrost Hall, causing the Bifrost Hall, which was already on the edge of Asgard, to fall directly into the endless starry abyss. Chapter 92. After discovering that the prodigal Thor had plans to destroy the Bifrost, Rog silently used the body flicker technique to retreat a distance. Thor and Loki have super strong physiques that surpass humans, so they don't have to worry about the shockwaves caused by the energy explosion, but Rog can't. Even if he has the body of an immortal, he doesn't think that his physique can be compared to aliens like Asgard. After the gorgeous explosion, it was a mess. Just as Rog began to sense the traces of Thor and Loki, a powerful life form far beyond his imagination appeared in his perception. A super life form as powerful as a planet. If Thor's energy strength after recovering Thor's power is a small pond, then the super life form that appeared in Rog's perception now is a vast ocean that stretches as far as the eye can see. Compared to this ocean, Rog felt that he was at most a palm tree on the beach. After perceiving this indescribable super life form, he decisively ended his perception and withdrew all the chakra and spirit force that he released outside his body. In Asgard, only one person has such a strong energy reaction as powerful as a planet. The king of Asgard, Thor's father, the father of Thor, the father of all gods, Odin. Wearing armor, a red cloak, and a golden eye patch on his right eye, Odin walked past Rog unhurriedly. When passing by Rog, the father of all gods, Odin turned his head and glanced at Rog, then continued to walk forward. Odin's casual glance made Rog's heart beat faster involuntarily. That feeling was like encountering an irresistible natural enemy, and a sense of fear that was branded in the depths of his instincts gushed out of his body. At this time, Rog finally understood why the purple potato spirit, known as the Crazy Titan, didn't dare to have any ideas about Asgard when Odin was still alive. On the surface, Odin's figure wasn't tall, and he had a head full of white hair. It was easy to mistake him for an old guy who could be knocked down with a heavy punch. But if someone really did that, they would know what it meant to not judge a book by its cover, and that the older ginger, the spicier it was. Rog quickly simulated the scene of his battle with Odin in his mind, and came to a conclusion that he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Even if he used all his means, even risking his life, he definitely wouldn't last more than a minute in Odin's hands. This was under the situation where Odin didn't use Gungnir and magic. After seeing Odin's arrival, the three warriors of Sengoku, Heimdall, and the others bowed slightly and took the initiative to make way. Although Thor and Loki, who were sent flying by the energy storm, didn't suffer any serious injuries, the energy storm directly sent them to the edge of Asgard, blowing them into the endless starry abyss. At this moment, Odin came to the edge of the broken Bifrost, and grabbed the two brothers, one in each hand, and brought them back. His casual manner made it seem as if he had casually caught two restless monkeys. Looking at Odin in front of him, Loki no longer had the madness and arrogance from before, and said in a childlike tone, "I can do it, father, I can really do it." "No, Loki." Although Odin's tone was very calm, to Loki, it was like the Gungnir that hit his heart hard. He was completely denied. Loki revealed a bitter smile, and threw the Gungnir in his hand onto the Bifrost, silently took a few steps back, and then leaped. Loki's decisiveness not only exceeded Odin's expectations, but also shocked Thor. Odin continued to attack, intending to capture Loki, the naughty child, again. However, he had failed. Odin's left hand, which was formed by energy, directly passed through Loki's figure. An illusion. What Odin caught was only an illusion left behind by Loki. When the illusion was shattered, Loki's figure appeared in the depths of the starry sky, and then completely disappeared in the collapsed spatial passage. The god of trickery, Loki, used an illusion to fool the father of gods, Odin, and used his last stubbornness to protect his self-esteem. Loki used a suicidal method to put an end to this family dispute. More than 10 minutes later, in the meeting hall of the Asgard Palace, Thor, Rog, Sif, the three warriors of Sengoku, and Heimdall stood in the hall without saying a word. On the throne above the hall, the father of gods, Odin, who held the Gungnir in his hand, also did not say a word, silently sizing up Thor and the others standing below. After a long silence, the father of gods, Odin, finally said, "Although Loki did wrong, he paid the price for it. This matter ends here. Thor will be responsible for the damage left behind by Loki. The order of the 9 realms must not fall into chaos because of this. Heimdall will be responsible for the reconstruction of the Bifrost. As for Rog, before the reconstruction of the Bifrost is completed, you can stay in Asgard, but you need to assist Thor in maintaining the order of the 9 realms. Rog had no objections to Odin's arrangement. Even if Odin threw him back to Earth now, it would be a very normal thing. But obviously, after knowing what Rog had done before, Odin was willing to fulfill this Earthling's small wish. After waking up from the state of Odin's sleep, Odin learned everything through his pets, Fokin and Fog. It was because of this that he agreed to Thor's request and did not send Rog back to Earth immediately. When night fell, a small banquet was held in a banquet hall in the Asgard Palace. The theme of the banquet was very simple, to celebrate the return of Thor and Thor. But as the main character of the banquet, Thor did not stay in the banquet for too long. Instead, he went to the wall outside the palace alone and stared at the distant starry sky. As the main character of the banquet, leaving alone in the middle of the banquet is not a good habit. Not long after Thor arrived, Rog's voice came from above him. Like Thor, Rog stayed in the banquet for a while and sneaked out. He couldn't stand the exaggerated flattery of the 3 warriors of Sengoku, and at the same time, he couldn't stand the terrifying alcohol tolerance of the people of Asgard. Thor raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice, then saw Rog sitting on the edge of a stone pillar more than 10 meters tall. "Do you think Loki is a good person?" Thor suddenly asked. "This world is not black or white, and people are not bad or bad. So, I can't give you an accurate answer. But I think that although Loki is not a good person, he is definitely not a pure bad person. You are his brother, you should know better than me what kind of person he is." Chapter 93. Odin asked Thor to maintain the order of the 9 realms, but in reality, the only thing that needed to be maintained was the order of Warnerheim. As long as Asgard was there, order would never be lost. Jotunheim, the home of the frost giants, was the country that suffered the most from this family dispute. However, the frost giant king Laufey had just died at the hands of Loki, so even if these frost giants had any ideas that they shouldn't have, they lacked the strength to do so. Muspelheim, the country of the flame giant Surtur, had the possibility of falling into chaos again, but it was only a possibility. Without the eternal fire, Surtur didn't have the strength to threaten Asgard, so he could be ignored for the time being. Midgard, or Earth, was a country blessed by the will of the universe, so it didn't need Asgard's protection. Svartalfheim, the home of the Dark Elves, was now in ruins, so it couldn't fall into chaos even if it wanted to. Alfheim, the Elven Kingdom, was a peaceful elven kingdom. Compared to fighting, the elves who stood aloof from worldly affairs preferred to grow flowers and plants. As long as you didn't provoke them, they wouldn't bother with you. As for Nidavel and Hyr, one was the home of the dwarves, and the other was the kingdom of the dead, so they didn't need to be too concerned. Only Vanaheim, where the Vanaheim gods were located, would have the ambition that they should not have after the Bifrost was destroyed. As Aseri's archenemy, Warner Protoss had the power to contend with Asgard's army. If Asgard hadn't produced 2 wise kings, Bauer and Odin, Warner Protoss wouldn't have been suppressed by Aseri for thousands of years. The destruction of the Bifrost meant that Asgard could no longer send troops to Warnerheim as quickly as before. For Warner Protoss, who had been itching for action, this was simply a super gift from the goddess of luck. On the 3rd day after the destruction of the Bifrost, Warner Protoss began to expel Asgard's troops. The war between Aseri and Warner Protoss reignited in Warnerheim. After receiving the urgent military information from Warnerheim's garrison, Asgard immediately entered a state of combat readiness and was ready to send troops at any time. "Is there a blacksmith with better craftsmanship here, who can enchant? I want to make a set of armor that suits me." According to Thor's instructions, Sif prepared a set of Asgardian armor for Log. However, Rog didn't really like this shiny golden armor with a cape. The design style of the armor had an extremely obvious Asgardian style. It was golden and shiny, bright enough to be eye-catching and flashy enough. But this wasn't to Rog's. As a ninja, how can he wear this kind of armor to the battlefield? This is simply an insult to the ninja profession. The dwarves of Nidavellir are the best blacksmiths, but without the Bifrost, we can't go there right away. As for enchantment, this is an ability that only a few high-level blacksmiths have. As far as I know, only the dwarf king Eitri can do it. The father of gods and the queen also have the ability to enchant, but you, Sif didn't say the second half of the sentence, but Rog knew what she meant. It's better for a small character like you to not have such unrealistic fantasies. Although the father of gods Odin and Queen Freya had the ability to enchant equipment, it wasn't a privilege that everyone could enjoy. Even Sif herself only had a magic longsword enchanted by Odin. The enchantment isn't urgent. I have some strange metals here. If possible, I hope to use these metals to make a set of armor that suits me before we depart. As soon as his voice fell, Rog cast the summoning technique in the room and summoned the vibranium from the summoning scroll. The vibranium that was summoned was part of the 10 tons of vibranium sent by the Wakanda king T'Chaka last time. I didn't expect you to have vibranium. Sif just glanced at it casually and recognized that these black ores emitting a faint blue light were vibranium. You know about vibranium? Rog asked with some surprise. Before the vibranium meteorite fell to Earth, Asgard already had a complete set of vibranium forging methods. And in the past few hundred years, Asgard went to Wakanda many times to get vibranium. Several times, I led the team there. What was called a foundation that had been settled over time. This was it. Compared to the average lifespan of the Asgard people of 5,000 years, the lifespan of the people of Earth was much shorter. Although vibranium is strong enough, it's not the metal of choice for forging equipment. Compared to vibranium, URU metal is more suitable. For example, this gift of the Earth Goddess in my hand is made of URU metal, and it has the enchantment of the Father of Gods. Sif pulled out the longsword hanging at her waist and waved it beautifully in front of Rog. The silver-white blade was gorgeous in design and at the same time guaranteed lethality. Just by looking at it, Rog could tell that this longsword was made by a master. I also know that vibranium's energy conductivity is extremely poor, but I only have this vibranium on hand. Why don't you give me some URU metal? Since they were already in Asgard, it was reasonable to bring back some of Asgard's specialties. After hearing Rog's words, Sif suddenly had the thought of stabbing this guy to death with her sword. Asgard did have a lot of URU metal, but no one would complain about having too much of such a precious metal. Even the palace guards of Asgard had not been completely equipped with URU metal. Only a small number of elite warriors could obtain a piece of equipment made of URU metal. Sif calmed herself down and prepared to reject Rog's sudden request. However, just as she was about to speak, she suddenly remembered something. Rog was about to go to Warnerheim with Thor. If he had better equipment, then the pressure on Thor would be less. After thinking seriously for a few minutes, Sif gave her own reply. It's impossible to give you the URU metal directly, but if you want, I can ask the blacksmith to add some URU metal into your armor. Since Logue wanted to forge a new set of armor, all he had to do was add some URU metal to it. No problem. Rog had just finished his sentence when he summoned a draft of the armor from the mediumship scroll. Are you sure you want to make this kind of armor? Taking the draft from Rog, Sif frowned and asked doubtfully. Yes, it's like this, and the color must be dark red. The armor design sketch that Logue took out wasn't something that he had casually drawn. The armor on the draft was exactly the same as the armor of Uchiha Madara. Chapter 94. Under Rog's insistence, Sif took away the design sketches of the armor and the unforged vibranium ore. Because of the loss of the Bifrost, it took Asgard 3 days to build the transmission magic array to Warnerheim and complete the final preparations for the expedition. Asgard's army has already been assembled. As long as Odin gives the order, this army, which symbolizes Asgard's strength, will set foot on the land of Warnerheim and put the flag of Asgard on every piece of land in Warnerheim. Half an hour before the army set off, Rog finally got his own armor from Sif. Compared to Asgard's golden armor, which exuded nobility and magnificence everywhere, the armor in Rog's hands could be regarded as extremely simple. Moreover, such a simple set of armor made people wonder how much defensive ability this set of armor had. Although Warner Protoss has been suppressed by Aseri, it doesn't mean that Warner Protoss is weak. Looking at Rog solemnly put on this simple armor that can be made by any craftsman, Sif can't help but begin to doubt Rog's strength. There are only two kinds of people who dare to wear this kind of armor on the battlefield. One is a rookie who doesn't have much combat experience and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The other is a king of the battlefield who has absolute confidence in his own skills and doesn't worry about being injured at all. Judging from Rog's age, Sif thinks he is more likely to be the former. After wearing the same armor as Madara, Rog opened his 3-tomo Sharingan and summoned the Kusanagi sword and the Thunder Fan. He had blood-red eyes, dark red armor, a Kusanagi sword hanging from his waist, and an unreasonably large Thunder Fan on his back. Sif doesn't know if it's her illusion, but when Rog put on the armor and took the weapons, she suddenly felt that the man in front of her seems to have such an invincible aura. The process of going to Warnerheim is not noteworthy, and it can even be regarded as a bit boring. Groups of troops walk into the transmission array, and then when the army in front is finished, the process is repeated. Compared with the transmission of Bifrost, this method of transmission is at least several generations behind, and it doesn't have the momentum of an army at all. Looking at the Rainbow Bridge's momentum of teleporting an army over with a clattering sound, and then looking at the slow teleportation of the magic array, the two were completely incomparable. But in any case, Asgard's army set off smoothly. Asgard is an army with a good tradition, so according to their customs, they first teleport the commander of the army, and then arrange for the army behind to be teleported. For this tradition of Asgard, Rog silently despised it. To put it nicely, this is called the commander taking the lead. To put it bluntly, this is to let the commander face unnecessary risks. If the enemy on the opposite side prepared an ambush in advance, or this transmission is completely a trap. Then when all the troops of Asgard are teleported, they will see the cold corpse of the commander. It's no wonder that every king of Asgard is strong, because those who are not strong have been killed by Asgard's tradition. Along with Thor, Rog and the 3 warriors of Sengoku were also teleported. As for Sif, she is not on the list of this expedition. The reason was simple: Queen Frigga had personally struck her name off the list of expeditionary troops. When the colorful transmission light in front of them disappeared, the first thing Rog and the others saw was a Asgard camp that was about to collapse. There are corpses everywhere in the camp, and energy beams and arrows are flying around the camp like headless flies. After seeing Thor's figure, the Asgard officer in charge of the camp immediately greeted him and reported the current situation to Thor. After listening to the officer's report, Thor didn't give any specific orders. He simply said that he understood, then waved Thor's hammer and flew out. The 3 warriors of Sengoku were already used to Thor's actions, and immediately rushed out with their weapons. When the Asgard soldiers around him rushed towards the Warner Protoss army like hungry wolves, Rog walked out of the transmission circle unhurriedly. It's finally going to start. At first, Rog's speed was just a normal walking speed, but in a few breaths, his speed began to increase. In the end, the Asgard soldiers only saw a red figure flash by. Rog didn't pull out the Kusanagi sword at his waist, nor did he touch the Thunder Fan behind him. At this time, he wanted to pay his respects to his idol. One man against an army. Thor in the air was about to swing Thor's hammer and descend from the sky. Then, he saw a scene he had never seen before. Thor thought his fighting style was wild enough, but now, he knew what it meant to be bold on the battlefield. Rog, like a red lightning, came in front of a Warner Protoss soldier. Then, with a flash of his sword, the Warner Protoss soldier fell back, and bright red blood spurted out from his neck. Rog didn't use the Kusanagi sword. He just took the Warner Protoss soldier's long sword, and then used the long sword to end the life of the Warner Protoss soldier. After casually killing the soldier, Rog didn't stop his footsteps. He turned sideways and directly came in front of the other 3 Warner Protoss soldiers. Chi! 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 The 3 Warner Protoss soldiers didn't realize what happened at all. The last scene that appeared in their eyes was a beautiful and fatal arc. In the blink of an eye, Rog had already killed 4 enemies. After killing the 3 Warner Protoss soldiers, Rog released his right hand that was holding the sword, and grasped the spear in the hands of one of the Warner Protoss soldiers. Stab, stab, entangle, point, pull, an inconspicuous spear, in Rog's hand, as if it had a life of its own, constantly attacked the surrounding Warner Protoss soldiers. Rog was like a battlefield harvester, quickly reaping the lives of the Warner Protoss soldiers. Attracting attention on the battlefield wasn't a wise decision. But this was the effect he wanted. More and more Warner Protoss soldiers rushed towards him. At this time, he threw the spear in his hand. After the spear pierced through the 3 enemies in front, it finally stopped. Rog didn't pay attention to the spear, because now he had a new weapon. One by one, the Warner Protoss soldiers rushed up, trying to completely surround him, and then cut down the guy who was rampaging on the battlefield. But no matter how many soldiers rushed up, Rog's pace wasn't affected at all. Now he didn't care about the weapon in his hand at all. Whatever weapon in the hands of the Warner Protoss soldiers, he would use that weapon. Sword, axe, hammer, spear, no matter what weapon it was, as long as it was in his hands, it could exert amazing power. As more and more enemies besieged him, his Sharingan also turned faster and faster. The dynamic visual ability of the Sharingan was perfectly displayed at this moment. With a simple glance, he could see all the movements of these soldiers. With a wave of his hand, he could take away the lives of these soldiers. Rog's battlefield rose bloomed. Chapter 95. The crazy Rog not only attracted the attention of the Warner Protoss soldiers, but also shocked the Asgard soldiers. When they knew that Rog was an Earthling, the Asgard soldiers couldn't help but look down on him. An Earthling with a short lifespan, a weak physique, and an underdeveloped technology couldn't be a strong person. If it weren't for the 3 warriors of Sengoku maintaining their respect for Rog, the Asgard soldiers would have completely ignored Rog. Although Thor had sparred with Rog before, after seeing the scene in front of him, he suddenly felt that he didn't seem to understand Rog's strength at all. On the entire battlefield, except for the 3 warriors of Sengoku who had witnessed Rog violently beating up the destroyer, everyone else showed an expression of disbelief. Compared to the scene of Rog controlling the more than 20 meters tall wooden Arhat Orla destroyer, this scene in front of them was just child's play. The Asgard soldiers were now very happy, because they found that they actually had such a strong person on their side. The Warner Protoss soldiers were now in despair, they even felt that they weren't facing a human, but a Grim Reaper disguised as a human. Rog's massacre still continued, and under his stimulation, the Asgard soldiers also displayed strength that exceeded their usual. One by one, they excitedly rushed towards the Warner Protoss soldiers. The battlefield began to boil. Blood splattered everywhere, and life and death were only separated by a fine line. At this time, the battlefield was like the boundary between the underworld and the human world. The left foot died, the right foot survived. The commander of the Vanir celestial race took a deep breath as he watched Rog slaughtering his own warriors like chopping vegetables and melons. Then, he issued a slightly cruel order. They used all their firepower to completely annihilate Rog, who was as dazzling as the god of death. Although Rog was surrounded by a large number of soldiers, compared to killing Rog, the death of these soldiers was completely negligible. Because even if they didn't do so, these soldiers would eventually die in the hands of Rog. Although Asari and Warner Protoss both highly advocated individual bravery, this did not mean that their weapons of war would remain in the era of cold weapons. Following the command of the Warner Protoss commander, a squad of artillery soldiers carrying energy cannons quickly arrived on the battlefield, and then aimed the cannons with a diameter of more than 10 centimeters at the constantly dancing Rog. Rog discovered the existence of the artillery squad as soon as they were in formation. Boom 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 boom. One energy cannonball after another fell from the sky like raindrops, instantly enveloping the area where Rog was. Explosions rang out continuously, and balls of colorful energy storms attacked everyone in the surroundings, regardless of whether they were friend or foe. The moment these artillery soldiers opened fire, Rog used body flicker to leave the battlefield, avoiding the raindrops of cannonballs. When the dust raised by the explosion dissipated, what appeared in front of everyone was a field of Warner Protoss soldiers falling down like wheat. Since Warner Protoss used energy weapons, Rog naturally wouldn't be polite to them. Rog put his hands together, straightened his thumbs, and formed a hand seal. Fire release, grand fire annihilation. A flame only as thick as a finger spewed out from Rog's mouth. Then, the flames suddenly grew, and instantly expanded into a flame wave like the sea. In the blink of an eye, the flame wave arrived in front of the Warner Protoss army, and completely devoured them like an ancient beast. The flame wave only lasted for less than 10 seconds before completely dissipating. Then, the Asgard people, including Thor, saw a scene like a Vichy hell. The Warner Protoss soldiers who were attacked by Grand Fire Annihilation still maintained their last movements before death, in the form of charred black corpses. They maintained the appearance of escaping, struggling, unwilling, and suffering. Wherever the flame passed, it was all scorched earth. Those who were attacked by the flame, were all dead. Even Thor, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air after seeing the scene in front of him. The originally noisy battlefield suddenly fell into a strange silence. After increasing the amount of chakra to 1 tael, this was the first time Rog used Grand Fire Annihilation. From the situation on the scene, the increase in chakra not only increased the attack range of Grand Fire Annihilation, but also significantly increased the temperature of the flame. After clearing the Warner Protoss army in front of him, Rog pulled out the Kusanagi sword from his waist and rushed toward the Warner Protoss army on the other side. The first battle of the Asgard army finally ended with Rog's brilliant performance. According to the post-battle statistics, the Warner Divine race had lost 2,000 men in this battle, including 200 of the Warner Divine race's trump card bloodshed warriors. When Rog wiped off the blood on his Kusanagi sword and returned to Asgard's camp, all the Asgard soldiers he met on the way silently took a step back and slightly bowed to him. Who said that Earthlings can't fight? When Earthlings go crazy, they are crazier than Asgard's craziest four-clawed devil beast. With just a simple camp defense battle, Rog established a higher position in the hearts of these Asgard soldiers than the 3 warriors of Sengoku. The bigger the fist, not only is the truth, but it is also the best way to gain respect. After arriving at the commander's tent in the middle of the camp, Rog saw Thor with an ugly expression and the 3 warriors of Sengoku who didn't say a word. As for the other commanders, he didn't know any of them. Although Asgard's advance camp was defended, this was the only camp that Asgard still had in Warnerheim. When Asgard was preparing for war, the Warner Protoss almost went all out and captured all of Asgard's camps. This meant that the army in this camp was all of Asgard's troops in Warnerheim. We lost 22 camps, and now the whole of Warnerheim is under the control of Warner Protoss. If we want to restore order here, then not only do we have to recover the lost camps, but we also have to drive Warner Protoss back to their homeland. This means that what is in front of us now is an army of more than 100,000 Warner Protoss. Even with all 23 camps, the total number of Asgard's troops in Warnerheim was just over 50,000. Before leaving, Thor was already mentally prepared for the worst. But he didn't think that the situation in Warnerheim would be this bad. It's only 100,000 people. We have 4,000 people now. As long as each of us kills 25 enemies, it's not that difficult. After listening to Thor's words, Rog gave his own suggestion. Wasn't it a simple matter to kill 25 people? Chapter 96. One person killing 25 people. That's right, that's easy. Easy my ass. If Asgard's soldiers had that kind of strength, Warnerheim would have become Asgard's vassal state long ago, and there wouldn't be so much trouble. If Rog hadn't just shown such amazing combat strength, the Asgard's commanders would definitely have thrown him out of the tent. That's still quite difficult. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's take care of the 3 closest camps first, then we'll think about the rest. Thor opened his mouth and pulled the topic back, preventing Rog from making more crazy suggestions. After a detailed study of the terrain of the 3 nearby camps and the comparison of their military strength, Thor quickly came up with a follow-up battle plan. What Thor usually did most of the time was to charge into the enemy's army with Thor's hammer, and then use his own strength to forcefully break the enemy's formation. But this didn't mean that he only knew how to charge and break through enemy lines, and didn't know anything about tactics and strategy. No matter what, he was a prince who grew up receiving the elite education of the royal family. He didn't lack the ability to command and strategize that a king should have. It's just that before he was exiled by Odin, he advocated personal bravery more. After listening to Thor's battle plan, Rog suddenly felt that Thor's tactics were quite similar to Sun Tzu's Art of War's concept of win by surprise. After Thor finished arranging the specific battle plan, the dozen or so commanders left the tent and began to mobilize the troops and prepare for the battle. When only the 5 of them were left in the tent, Thor, the 3 warriors of Sengoku, and Rog, Thor said to Rog, "Your performance on the battlefield today was very dazzling and amazing. But I hope that you can control the degree of killing a little. Sometimes, it's not a bad idea to directly kill the enemy's commander." From the perspective of defeating the enemy, Thor didn't have any objections to Rog's approach, and would even encourage him to do so. However, the problem was that their expedition this time was to restore the original order of Vanaheim, not to exterminate the Vanaheim gods. So he hoped that Rog could control his actions a little. Defeating the enemy's army was enough, there was no need to kill them all. It was not Asgard's style to be ruthless. You're the commander, you have the final say. On the surface, Roger agreed to Saul's request, but in his heart, he was thinking about something else. Odin grew old and became merciful. If he was young Odin, he would never have taught Thor this philosophy. Wherever the Asgardian army pointed, it was the territory of the king. Asgard's reputation was built on the bones and blood of his enemies. Comparing the style of the goddess of death to Thor's current request, the difference between the two was like the difference between a cold-blooded tyrant and a kind king. Asgard's army in the camp was divided into 3 groups, each heading to their respective target. It was unknown whether it was because Thor trusted Rog's promise or because he didn't want to see, but he did not arrange for Rog to be in the same group as himself. At this time, the one with Rog was Hogun of the 3 warriors of Sengoku. As for Volstagg and Fandral of the 3 warriors, they led another army. According to Thor's arrangement, the 3 armies would attack the 3 camps at the same time, cutting off the possibility of the 3 camps helping each other. Although Rog was one of the commanders in name, in reality, only Hogun was in charge of this army. Thor originally wanted to let Rog participate in the command, but he actively refused. What a joke, he was someone who could even lose to the simplest machine in strategy games. Letting him command the army was basically asking the army to go for free. After a long journey, Rog and the others finally arrived at the forest near the target camp. There aren't many guards in the camp, only less than 2,000. And more than half of them are hired mercenaries, so their actual combat strength is a little weaker. Hogun explained to Rog. For an earthling like Rog, his understanding of the Warner Protoss was basically the same as 0. Those who wear different clothes are mercenaries. Their origins are very complicated. Some are space pirates, and some are wanted criminals on their respective planets, so it's okay to be a little cruel when facing them. These interstellar pirates and wanted criminals were not welcome on any planet. Simply put, even if they were killed in the cruelest way, there would not be any negative impact. Understood. Seeing that Rog was ready to fight at any time, Hogan also ordered the army behind him to prepare to attack. However, at this moment, a 5-meter-tall rock golem stood up from the camp and walked straight to the camp gate. Behind this rock golem, there were more than 20 smaller rock golems. Why is there a Cronin warrior here? Hogan's face became extremely ugly. A Cronin warrior? Leave these rock golems to me, you take care of the other targets. As soon as he finished speaking, Rog teleported out of the forest and directly appeared in front of the 5-meter-tall Cronin warrior. With a body made entirely of rocks and a giant hammer that was even bigger than Log's body, this Cronin warrior was basically a self-propelled siege weapon. Roger's sudden appearance startled the Cronin warrior. Then, he yelled at Roger, "Sir, you're coming." Unfortunately, Rog did not learn the alien language and could not understand what the Cronin warrior was saying. However, after seeing the Cronin warrior use his hand to make an uncivilized gesture, Rog disappeared again. Odama Rasengan. Rog suddenly appeared in front of the Cronin warrior and slapped the 1-meter-diameter Odama Rasengan in his right hand onto the warrior's face. Boom! Amidst the violent explosion, pieces of shattered rock scattered in all directions like raindrops. Under the terrifying impact and twisting force of the Odama Rasengan, the 5-meter-tall Cronin warrior involuntarily took a few steps back and then fell down uncontrollably. When the Cronin warrior fell down, people realized that the Cronin warrior's rock head had completely disappeared. One-hit kill. The Cronin warrior known as the meat grinder of the battlefield fell just like that, without any resistance. Chapter 97. The Cronin warrior, who was famous for his defense, actually got his head blown off in one hit. And the one who got his head blown off was a Cronin warrior who was more than 5 meters tall and had the potential to become a lord. What happened to the world? Even the experienced and knowledgeable Asgard warriors and Warner Protoss warriors couldn't help but wonder if they were hallucinating after seeing this scene. The ones who were the most shocked were the 20 or so Cronin warriors behind them. For Cronin warriors, there was a simple and brutal standard to judge them. That was, the bigger the body, the stronger the strength. However, their boss, who was more than twice their height, fell in front of them just like that. For these Cronin warriors, this was like a bolt from the blue. Compared to the shocked onlookers who were wondering if they were hallucinating, Rog himself was incomparably calm. Let alone a stone man, even if a steel giant was hit by his Odama Rasengan, even if it didn't die, it would definitely lose half of its life. What's more, after the Cronin warrior made that obscene gesture, he silently increased the output of chakra. In broad daylight, in front of everyone, he actually made such an obscene gesture. This was simply the regression of civilization, the collapse of etiquette, and the deterioration of wisdom. Therefore, Rog felt that he had to correct this Cronin warrior's uncivilized behavior. After dealing with the Cronin warrior, Rog's gaze landed on the 20 little Cronin warriors behind. Although they were little Cronin warriors, that was only in comparison to the Cronin warriors that had fallen. These little Cronin warriors were still in a state of shock. Each one of them was more than 2 meters tall and had arms thicker than Rog's thighs. Squeak! While these Cronin warriors were still in shock from the death of their boss, they heard a sound that sounded like 1,000 birds chirping at the same time. Following the sound, they saw Rog holding the Kusanagi sword and the light blue electric current visible to the naked eye. Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade. Rog didn't give these Cronin warriors too much time to react. When these Cronin warriors looked at him, his figure suddenly disappeared. Then, there was the sound of stones cracking one after another. These cracking sounds were crisp, short, and cruel. In front of the Chidori blade that could easily cut through steel, the defense that these Kronen warriors were so proud of was like paper. As the Kusanagi swords continued to slash their bodies, a smooth cut appeared on their rocky bodies. Then, under the influence of gravity, their stone bodies were split in half and fell heavily to the ground. There was no blood splattering everywhere, and no internal organs flowing all over the ground. After being cleanly cut in half by the Kusanagi sword, the dead Kronen warriors turned into pieces of gravel in just a few seconds. Compared to the Kronen warriors, the first Kronen warrior's body's Chidori was the warrior's. Rog didn't know if this was a reflection of strength, or if there was some kind of mutation in the warriors. He only glanced at the warrior's body for a moment, then turned his attention back to the rest of the Kronen warriors. After decapitating the last Kronen warrior, Rog stopped and put the Kusanagi sword back into the scabbard. From when he first appeared to when he put the sword back into the scabbard, less than a minute had passed. When Rog began to turn around and leave, Hogan and the Asgard warriors finally reacted and rushed out of the forest. What followed was an ordinary attack and defense of the camp that couldn't be any more ordinary. After dealing with the Kronen warriors, Rog didn't participate in the next battle. Instead, he went to a big tree and sat down casually. Although Asgard's warriors didn't have as many enemies in the camp, whether it was in terms of equipment or individual strength, the Asgard warriors had the upper hand. Other than the Kronen warriors, the other enemies in the camp couldn't arouse his interest at all. Although the mercenaries all looked different, and the color of their blood was also different, that was all there was to it. Looking at the one-sided battle in the camp, Rog began to feel curious. Was Warner Protoss really qualified to be a series enemy? Whether it was in terms of equipment or individual strength, the Warner Protoss warriors were a level lower than the Aseri warriors. Even the Blood Blade warriors of Warner Protoss were at the same level as the elite warriors of Asgard. But one was an ace, and the other was only an elite. But soon, Rog knew why Warner Protoss was Aseri's enemy. Just as he was about to fall asleep, he felt a strong energy wave descend into the camp. He opened his eyes and saw a huge tornado with a diameter of nearly 10 meters. This sudden tornado didn't differentiate between friend and foe and attacked everyone in the camp. Then, the entire camp was ravaged into ruins. When the tornado disappeared, Rog saw 3 men wearing light blue armor and green cloaks. Chakra perception. Without any hesitation, Rog decisively used chakra perception and began to sense the 3 enemies that didn't look like ordinary enemies. This energy intensity is very good. Rog, who had a bored look on his face, instantly became extremely spirited and eager to give it a try. Compared to the ordinary Warner Protoss warriors, these 3 enemies that suddenly appeared not only had stronger strength, but Rog also felt the aura of a storm from them. This kind of aura, Rog also felt from Thor. The difference was that Thor's aura was lightning, but what he felt now was the aura of a storm. After the tornado ended, the 3 enemies that suddenly appeared raised the spears in their hands at the same time. The originally clear sky was suddenly shrouded by dark clouds and torrential rain poured down. Along with the torrential rain, there was also a tornado strong enough to blow away Asgard's warriors. If these 3 people didn't appear, Asgard's warriors would be able to completely take over the camp in a short time. But now, Asgard's warriors were constantly blown away by the tornado, and the great situation that they created before was suddenly cleared. Water release. Water iron cannon. Chapter 98. Amidst the storm, the liquid bullets fired by the iron water cannon technique were inconspicuous and didn't attract any attention. However, in the next second, the enemy in the middle was sent flying, and the light blue spear in his hand was also thrown to the side. The moment the enemy was sent flying, the storm that was like a natural disaster instantly disappeared, as if everything that happened just now was just an illusion. Looking at the enemy that was sent flying, Rog slightly frowned. He had originally thought that this liquid bullet would be able to take the enemy's life and complete a surprise kill. But in the end, the liquid bullet fired by the iron water cannon technique sent the enemy flying, and then left a fist-sized dent in his chest armor. The iron water cannon technique, known for its penetrative power, was blocked just like that. After the storm stopped, Hogg led the Asgard warriors out of the camp and quickly came to Rogg's side. These are the three storm brothers of Warner Protoss. From left to right, they are Frey, Ford, and Freya. They are the descendants of Njord. They control the power of the storm, and the three of them are extremely good at fighting together. They are famous among the Warner Protoss. Hogun briefly introduced the three storm brothers. Then what's the situation now? When Hogun led the Asgard warriors out of the camp, the three storm brothers also reorganized their team. But they didn't let the Warner Protoss warriors launch an attack. Instead, they let the team stay in front of the camp's gate. King against king, general against general. It seems that they intend to use the method of battle formation to determine the outcome of this battle. Although Rogg didn't experience the so-called battle formation, after seeing the three storm brothers take the initiative to walk in front of the battle formation, he immediately understood the meaning of battle formation. Using the result of the battle between the two generals to determine the outcome of the battle. This kind of battle formation was not uncommon on Earth. From the development of Earth's civilization, this kind of battle formation might have been passed down to Earth by Asgard. 1 against 3. Go, I'll support you in spirit. After that, Rogg silently took a few steps back and made an inviting gesture to Hogun. Since it was a battle between generals, it would definitely be a battle between the commanders of both sides. Hogun was the current commander of this Asgard army. After seeing Rogg's "I'm very optimistic about you" expression, Hogun almost couldn't help but smash the warhammer in his hand directly at Rogg. What kind of joke was this? They were facing the three storm brothers. Even if the three warriors of Sengoku were here, they might not be able to win, let alone him. Although this kind of method seemed to be more civilized and could prevent the death of ordinary soldiers, it was still not enough. But the problem was that if they lost, the commander would be the one to die. Glancing at Rogg, then turning his head to look at the three storm brothers not far away, Hogun quickly made a decision. Under everyone's gaze, Hogun raised the warhammer in his hand and pointed it at the storm brothers. Then, he turned around and ran. Who said that warriors who used warhammers weren't good at speed? Hogun used his own actions to prove that even with a warhammer, he could still run very fast. Hogun's action unsurprisingly caused a wave of boos. Even the Asgard warriors couldn't help but sigh after seeing this scene. Hogun didn't care about the boos of the Warner Protoss warriors. Compared to the preciousness of life, a little bit of boos was nothing. Rogg also didn't expect Hogun to make such a move, which made him have a trace of doubt about Asgard's martial spirit. Since Hogun wasn't interested in a battle between generals, Rogg could only do it himself. Moreover, he just happened to have a little interest in the so-called storm force. Although the nature and manifestation of the energy were not the same, from his point of view, the storm force was a bit similar to wind release and water release. The only difference was that after Chakra's wind and water attributes fused, it would become ice release. Rogg casually walked to a place about 20 meters in front of the three storm brothers, then pulled out the Kusanagi sword from his waist. At the same time as he pulled out his Kusanagi sword, the three storm brothers also raised their spears and pointed them at him. Then, Rogg disappeared in front of the three storm brothers. Now that they were in the middle of a war, it was unnecessary to report his name. The second after Rogg disappeared, Ford, who had just been hit by his water iron cannon technique, didn't hesitate and directly stabbed his spear at the empty space in front of him. Ford's reaction was very fast, and his combat intuition was sharp enough. However, Rogg's speed was faster. Body flicker technique. The moment Ford stabbed with his spear, Rogg changed the direction of his sprint and directly rushed to the left side of Frey. Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade. As soon as the sound of birds rang out, the Kusanagi sword wrapped in light blue electric snakes appeared in front of Fry. Just as the Kusanagi sword was about to cut Frey's neck, a 1-meter-thick tornado attacked from the right side of Rog. Woo! In the end, the Kusanagi sword couldn't cut Frey's neck, and Rog was attacked by the tornado and revealed himself. The one who summoned the tornado wasn't Ford, who was standing in the middle, but Freya, who was on the right. Until now, Rog finally understood the true meaning of Hogan's words that the Storm Brothers were very good at fighting together. From the moment he launched his attack to the moment he was forced to reveal himself, it had only been less than 2 seconds. However, in these short 2 seconds, the 3 Storm Brothers displayed a tacit understanding, directly interrupting Rog's rapid attack. When he was forced to reveal himself, Ford and Fry did not hesitate and immediately rushed forward to entangle him. Dang 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 dang, the sound of metal clashing continued as Log's Kusanagi sword clashed with the Storm Brothers' spears. Rog originally thought that the Storm Brothers were more proficient in magic attacks, but judging from the current situation, they were more proficient in close combat. The attacks of the 3 Storm Brothers were incomparably fierce. The 3 spears continuously stabbed towards Rog from different directions. Whether it was the power and speed of the attack, or the angle and timing of the attack, they were all impeccable. Even Thor had no choice but to retreat in the face of the Storm Brothers' joint attack. But Rog is not Thor, and he has the Sharingan. Relying on the dynamic vision of the Sharingan, Rog blocked every attack of the Storm Brothers. Don't underestimate people too much. 1 against 3, Rog not only did not choose to retreat, but also took the time to counterattack. As if they felt that Rog was difficult to deal with, the Storm Brothers suddenly accelerated their attack rhythm. The 3 of them moved forward at the same time, further reducing Rog's area of activity. Finally willing to come in? Although the actions of the Storm Brothers reduced Rog's area of activity, it also gave him an excellent opportunity to counterattack. Lightning Release, Chidori. Chapter 99. What are you supposed to do when 3 adult men with bad intentions approach you with a stick in their hands? The answer is simple: electrocute them. Visible electric currents instantly covered Rog's body. Without needing to control them, the electric currents were like poisonous snakes hunting their prey, suddenly pouncing on the 3 Storm Brothers. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the 3 Storm Brothers were sent flying and then heavily hit the ground. Never get close to a man who can electrocute people, especially one who has a sword in his hand. After using Chidori to send the 3 Storm Brothers flying, Rog did not hesitate and directly attacked Ford, who was closest to him. The Kusanagi sword wrapped in electric currents came in front of Fry, and then it was blocked by Frey's spear. Even in a situation where he could not move, Ford still made a defensive posture at the last moment, using the spear in his hand to block the Kusanagi sword that was about to cut his neck. Relying on his battle instincts honed over the years, Ford fought for a precious chance to survive. As for the rest, he just needed to leave it to Fry and Freya. Just as Ford predicted, after discovering that he was attacked, Fry and Freya raised the spears in their hands, and 2 tornadoes gushed out from the tip of the spears, directly attacking Rog's back. Fry and Freya's attack was just right before Rog's second attack. If he continued to attack Ford, he would also be hit by the tornadoes behind him. Should he finish him off, or should he leave? The answer was to leave. The 2 tornadoes swept past Rog's position like lightning, then dissipated into the air. After teleporting away, Rog did not continue to attack the Storm Brothers. Instead, he allowed the 3 of them to gather together. You are very strong. But you are not a match for the 3 of us. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being alone. Fry, who was standing in the middle, said to Rog. At the same time, he raised the spear in his hand, ready to attack at any time. To be able to remain unscathed under the joint attack of the 3 brothers and even launch 2 extremely threatening attacks, such an opponent was worthy of them going all out. Are you bullying me with numbers? Since that's the case, I'll show you what a real 1 versus 3 is. As soon as he finished speaking, Rog used the shadow clone technique. Bang 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 bang, after 8 clouds of white smoke, 8 identical shadow clones appeared beside the main body. What kind of spell was this? Looking at the 8 shadow clones around Rog, the 3 Storm Brothers couldn't help but stare blankly. This was not an illusion, but a physical clone. After discovering that the shadow clones beside Rog were not illusions, the Storm Brothers silently gripped the spears in their hands. 1 Rog was hard enough to deal with, and now there were 8 more. Can this world still be good? Compared to the vigilant faces of the 3 Storm Brothers, Hogan had an indifferent expression. Ever since he saw Rog's wood puppet technique and wood dragon technique, his evaluation of Rog had increased explosively. Even if Rog now turned into Sif's appearance, he wouldn't be surprised. When the shadow clones appeared, Asgard's soldiers were silent for a few seconds, and then burst into loud cheers. The second round begins now. As soon as Rog finished speaking, he and the 8 shadow clones disappeared from everyone's sight. In the next second, they appeared around the 3 Storm Brothers. 9 Kusanagi swords surrounded by lightning snakes stabbed towards the 3 Storm Brothers at the same time. Although the Kusanagi swords in the hands of the shadow clones can't be compared to the real Kusanagi swords, but if they were stabbed, they would still die. The Storm Brothers didn't dare to have the slightest carelessness. The 3 of them stood back to back and waved the spears in their hands. After the fight just now, Rog also grasped some information about the Storm Brothers. The Storm Brothers can indeed summon hurricanes and storms, but they can't do it in close combat. This also meant that the 3 Storm Brothers could only choose between long-range damage and melee combat. As long as the attack is fast enough, the Storm Brothers won't have the chance to release the power of the storm. And speed is what Rog is best at. Originally, the scene of the 3 Storm Brothers besieging Rog has now turned into a scene of 9 Rog besieging the 3 Storm Brothers. Rog and the Shadow Clone's attack speed is getting faster and faster. Not long after, it has exceeded the limit that can be seen by the naked eye. For the onlookers, Hogan and the others, this is not good news. Because now they can only see the Storm Brothers constantly waving their spears, but they can't see Rog's figure at all. Clang 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 clang, the Kusanagi sword and the spears collided continuously, and the Storm Brothers were facing more and more pressure. Just when they planned to resist Rog's attack and release the power of the storm at the cost of minor injuries, Rog's voice suddenly sounded in their ears. First one. The Storm Brothers' hair stood up, and a dangerous thought suddenly flashed in their mind. Then, Fry and Ford saw a beautiful bloodline flying in front of their eyes. It's Freya. Although the Storm Brothers' strength is about the same, after the fight, Rog found that Freya's strength is slightly weaker than Ford and Fry. Usually, this small difference won't have any impact. But in the ultra-fast attack and defense that Rog deliberately created, this small difference in strength is infinitely magnified. No matter how high the tacit understanding is, it's impossible to be completely the same. Even if they are completely connected, their strength and physical fitness can't be completely the same. As long as it's not completely the same, it means there's a flaw. Even with his throat cut by the Kusanagi sword, Freya still doesn't understand how Rog did it. The 3 of them have honed their 3-person cooperation for thousands of years, how can there be a flaw? Freya doesn't understand this, and he has no way to know the answer. After killing Freya in a flash, Rog directly set his eyes on Ford. Pick the soft persimmon, beat the enemy to death. Since Freya is dead, Ford is the soft persimmon. However, just as Rog changed his target, a tornado far stronger than before appeared in an instant, and he and his shadow clone were both blown away. The tornado with a diameter of tens of meters was like a crazy dragon that went out of control. The sky was instantly covered by black clouds, and the whole world seemed to have entered into darkness. Torrential rain poured down, and the giant tornado became bigger and bigger. A few seconds later, Ford and Fry walked out of the eye of the tornado, their bodies shining with a dazzling light blue light. Finally decided to go all out? Chapter 100. Just by looking at it, one could tell that Fry and Ford were going to fight to the death. How domineering. No, that's not right, it's energy leaking. The light blue light shining from their bodies was not a visual effect, but a real, almost solid energy. In the apocalyptic scene, two men with spears in their hands walked out, their bodies glowing. As long as one's IQ wasn't blown away by the hurricane, even a fool could tell that they were angry, and very, very angry. Therefore, after seeing Fry and Ford showing such a domineering aura, Hogan didn't hesitate and immediately ordered the Asgard soldiers to retreat. As for Rog, Hogan felt that he didn't need to be reminded. Rog wasn't surprised by Fry and Ford's violent reaction. Although he didn't know how long the three Storm brothers had been together, from their age, he guessed that they had been together for at least a few hundred years. Not to mention the death of their brothers, even if it was their pet dog that had accompanied them for hundreds of years, they would still go crazy. This kind of example was not rare even on Earth. Rog remembered very clearly that there was a man named Jean who killed a total of 377 people because his dog was killed. Among them, there was no lack of inhumane killings with pencils. The incident this time was a tragedy caused by a famous dog. Freya was obviously not a dog, and Fry and Ford were not John. But in any case, it was normal for Fry and Ford to have some violent reactions. Fraverd's wasteful energy leakage, although it seemed very irrational, was the best choice they could make at the moment. With the three of them working together, they couldn't defeat Rog in close combat. What's more, they were now one less person, so after Freya's death, Fry and Ford completely gave up the idea of fighting Rog in close combat. The rain was like a full moon, accompanied by the hurricane that could blow people away. The original hot-blooded battle instantly became miserable and sad. In order to not be blown away by the hurricane, Rog gathered chakra at his feet to make himself stand firmly on the ground, and then put away the Kusanagi sword in his hand. Since the enemy has started to use their big move, he naturally has to use a big move to repay the enemy. Mokutan, wood puppet technique. The ground under Rog's feet began to roll, and a 20-meter-tall wood arhat climbed out of the ground, like a messenger of death crawling out of the abyss. In order to make himself look cool, Rog deliberately covered his whole body with a light blue chakra coat, adding a visual effect that only V16 VIPs can have. In addition to the sparkling visual effect, he also deliberately set the place where Wood Arhat climbed out at his feet, and he stood on top of Wood Arhat's head. Although he still didn't know the legendary ultimate move of giving you a handicap of 2 hands, this didn't affect him from experiencing the effect of the shrunken simple test suit in advance. On this battlefield, I won't allow anyone to be more pretentious than me. Standing on top of Wood Arhat's head, Rog looked down at the Fraverd brothers with an arrogant expression. After seeing Rog once again summon Wood Arhat, Hogan, who was retreating, stopped, and his heart was suddenly filled with a sense of security. As one of the parties who had seen Wood Arhat beat up the destroyer, Hogan has a blind confidence in Wood Arhat. Compared with Hogan, who was full of a sense of security, the Fraverd brothers frowned deeply. They thought that Rog was only a warrior who was good at close combat, but the appearance of Wood Arhat completely broke their idea. How can a person who can summon such a giant creature only be good at close combat? And on Wood Arhat's body, they felt an extremely strong breath of life. Although the appearance of Wood Arhat shocked Ford and Fry, it could not extinguish their anger of revenge for Freya. Even if the one standing in front of them now was Odin, the father of the gods, they would not give up. Regardless of whether they could beat him or not, if they didn't even have the courage to fight, then even if they eventually left here alive, they would leave a very obvious psychological flaw in the future. Without further hesitation, Fry and Ford raised the spears in their hands, and the torrential rain seemed to come to life in an instant. Hundreds of millions of raindrops hit Rog like bullets. Along with the raindrops, there was a hurricane that was enough to destroy houses and raze trees. At this moment, Rog seemed to be targeted by the whole world, and all he could see were enemies. Rog did not care about the raindrops that were like bullets, nor did he care about the hurricanes that were like natural disasters. He stood motionless on top of Wood Arhat's head. The light blue chakra coat set him off like a god. The torrential rain did not dim the light on his body, and the hurricane did not shake his body in the slightest. After standing in place and letting the torrential rain and hurricane hit him for more than 10 seconds, he finally controlled Wood Arhat under his feet. In order to make Wood Arhat even more imposing, and also to increase Wood Arhat's attack power, Rog put on Wood Arhat's chakra coat, and at the same time added the effect of lightning serpent on Wood Arhat's body. A 25-meter-tall giant body, a light blue chakra coat, and the outermost layer of lightning serpents that constantly wandered around. This Wood Arhat had reached the peak of his appearance and strength. Then, under everyone's gaze, Wood Arhat began to run forward. Just when everyone thought that Wood Arhat would directly rush towards Ferverd and Roland, Wood Arhat displayed an astonishing jumping ability, and directly jumped into the air. Looking at Wood Arhat, who jumped high, and then fell like a meteor, Fry and Ford did not dare to be careless, and the two spears in their hands directly collided. At the beginning, the tip of the spear only gushed out a small, finger-thick mini tornado. But when these two tornadoes intertwined and converged into one, the tornado's diameter instantly increased to dozens of meters. Rog did not pay attention to the huge tornado that was enough to swallow Wood Arhat, and a sentence appeared in his mind. Do you remember that there was a palm technique that fell from the sky? The huge tornado was like a roaring dragon, and it crashed into Wood Arhat, who was falling like a meteor. On this day, Hogun and Asgard saw a scene that they would never forget. The heavenly Buddha descends, the 10,000 Buddhas greeting the sect. Chapter 101. Although the warriors of Asgard and Warner Protoss didn't know what a Buddha was, it didn't affect their shock at the scene in front of them. A 20-meter-tall behemoth broke through the obstruction and attack of the giant tornado and descended from the sky in a domineering manner. Relying on gravity and Rog's burst of chakra, Wood Arhat emitted a blue light and had electric snakes coiling around it. He stretched out his right hand and pressed down on Ford and Fry with his huge palm. Boom! A huge sound like a nuclear bomb exploding suddenly rang out, and the entire ground shook violently. When the shockwave from the explosion completely dissipated, Hogun and the others could finally see the scene in front of them clearly. The 20-meter-tall Wood Arhat stood proudly, and in front of Wood Arhat was a deep pit with a diameter of tens of meters. Although they couldn't see Ford and Fry, it wasn't hard to guess the fate of the two brothers just by looking at the blood stains on Wood Arhat's right hand and the two broken spears that pierced into his palm. With just one palm, he completely wiped out the two famous Warner Protoss brothers, Fry and Ford. The three Storm brothers were all dead. Whether it was Hogun and the others, or the warriors of Warner Protoss, they couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Wasn't this a little too crazy? They were the descendants of Poseidon Njord, an existence that controlled the power of the storm. They were powerful beings that were famous in both Warner Protoss and Asari. It wasn't that the three Storm brothers couldn't die in battle, but the way they died was too humiliating. It was so humiliating that even Hogun, their enemy, felt it was a pity. Freya was a little better, at least he died with a little dignity. But Ford and Fry, looking at the blood stains on Wood Arhat's palm, Hogun suddenly sighed. He now remembered something Rog said to him before, something he didn't understand before. Sir, times have changed. The times have really changed, to the point where even a veteran like Hogun had the idea of retiring. Although they couldn't accept that Fry and Ford died in this way, the warriors of Warner Protoss still fulfilled their traditional promise, put down their weapons, and admitted defeat. When the warriors of Warner Protoss put down their weapons and admitted defeat, the mercenaries they hired suddenly betrayed them. We're just here to make money, what does glory have to do with us? For these mercenaries who used to be space pirates and wanted criminals, glory was worthless. So they decisively chose to retreat, or in other words, escape. Hundreds of mercenaries suddenly scattered, running in different directions in twos and threes. The actions of the mercenaries undoubtedly gave the warriors of Warner Protoss a slap in the face, completely trampling what little glory they had left. Thus, a battle between the warriors of Warner Protoss and the mercenaries broke out. The warriors of Warner Protoss picked up the weapons on the ground, and then pointed them at the mercenaries who were their comrades a dozen seconds ago. Although the warriors of Warner Protoss didn't have as many mercenaries, in terms of actual combat power, each of them had the strength to take on a few mercenaries. The warriors of Warner Protoss used their actions to prove the huge gap between professional soldiers and amateur soldiers. The warriors of Asgard didn't intervene in the civil war between the warriors of Warner Protoss and the mercenaries. They just lined up near the camp, and then silently watched the scene in front of them. Under the huge gap in strength, the mercenaries didn't last long. After more than 10 minutes, the commander of Warner Protoss came in front of Hogan alone, and handed the weapon stained with the blood of the mercenaries to Hogan. After Blockhead Arhat killed the two brothers Ford and Fry, Rog directly sat on top of Blockhead Arhat's head, and began to think about a serious problem. Although the storm power of the three Storm brothers wasn't particularly strong, it had a very obvious nature of natural energy. Whether it was the tornado or the rainstorm, it wasn't the power of the three Storm brothers themselves. What they did was to use the storm power in their body to trigger the resonance of natural energy, and then through the manipulation of natural energy, they created tornadoes and rainstorms that were far stronger than their own energy. Although Rog didn't lack chakra now, compared to the natural energy that filled the whole world, the amount of chakra he had was not worth mentioning. Originally, he planned to practice Sage Mode after his chakra reached the level of Nibi or Sanbai. But the appearance of the three Storm brothers made him plan to advance his plan. The Sage Mode inheritance can be chosen from Mount Mayaboku, Ryuchi Cave, or Shikatsu Forest. The exchange price is 400 ninja coins. The price of Sage Mode wasn't high, and he still had 256 ninja coins. If he wanted to exchange, as long as he was willing to spend a few months or half a year, he could get the 400 ninja coins needed for the exchange. To exchange, or not to exchange, that was the question. After thinking about it for a few minutes, he finally made the decision to advance his plan. Since he had to exchange sooner or later, he might as well solve this problem before returning to Earth. Mastering Sage Mode earlier was also a good thing for him. After night fell, Hogan and Rog received the latest information from Thor and Fandral. Like them, when Thor and Fandral attacked the camp, they also encountered the reinforcements sent by Warner Protoss. Although the process was a bit difficult, they finally took the camp smoothly and completed the established plan. Including the initial advance camp, Asgard now has 4 camps, which can be regarded as the initial foothold. Thor also specifically told Rog to avoid too bloody killing in the process of the battle. It seems that Thor was still worried about Rog, worried that he would accidentally do something excessive. Asgard came to maintain the order of Warnerheim, not to start a full-scale war. Rog did not take Thor's instructions to heart at all. Well, although Odin asked me to assist Thor in maintaining the order of the 9 realms, as you know, I'm a private investigator. When he heard the word private investigator, Hogan was stunned. Let me put it another way. I'm not Asgard's man, so I'm different from you. I don't have military pay. Therefore, in the upcoming battle, I hope that we can cooperate in another way. Although Hogan looked like he only knew how to fight, when he heard the word military pay, he immediately clenched the wallet on his belt. They had not known each other for a long time, so if it was about borrowing money, then forget it. Although Hogan did not speak, Rog understood what he meant. I don't want to borrow money. What I mean is, if you need me to fight in the next battle, you can commission me. My fee is very cheap, especially for you. I can give you a discount you can't imagine. Chapter 102. Mission? Are you planning to be a mercenary? Hogan, who was originally vigilant, suddenly looked distressed after hearing Rog's words. Are you betraying the warrior's honor? How can you be a mercenary? You're degenerating yourself. You won't be able to go to the Hall of Valhalla after you die like this. Before Rog could speak, Hogan had already started persuading him with righteous words. It's just that Hogan's persuasion skills are a bit difficult to explain in a few words. What do you mean I won't be able to go to the Hall of Valhalla after I die? I'm still very young, and I don't have any plans to die in battle. As for the warrior's honor, I don't have a damn warrior's honor. I'm a ninja. I'm the kind of ninja who spits fire and occasionally rolls a meatball. Although that's what he thought, Rog still said, strictly speaking, I'm still a little different from a mercenary. A mercenary's main job is to kill and set fires, but I'm different. I can accept other kinds of missions besides killing and setting fires. For example, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Or do you have a sister who's been missing for many years? Even if you want to see your ex-girlfriend whom you've broken up with for many years, that's also possible. After listening to Rog's explanation, Hogan shook his head fiercely, obviously unable to accept Rog's words. Either you give me the military pay I deserve based on my current strength, or you give me the military pay I deserve. Or, you can accept the form of commission that I propose. Choose one, there's no other choice. I'm an earthling, I have no obligation to fight for Asgard. Looking at Rog's serious and irrefutable expression, Hogan seriously considered the huge amount of salary that matched Rog's combat strength. In the end, he still agreed to use the form of a commission in exchange for Rog's help. If it's a commission, it should be reimbursed, right? After resting in the camp for 3 days, Hogan and Rog went to the next target according to Thor's plan. In order to avoid the disastrous result of losing 3 camps in one day, Warner Protoss gathered more than 20,000 troops to support the front line in 3 short days. According to the latest information, the next target of Rog's attack, Kurun Castle, already had more than 8,000 troops stationed there. Kurun Castle originally had less than 2,000 troops, but after learning of the death of the 3 Storm brothers, Warner Protoss sent 6,000 troops to reinforce Kurun Castle. It was said that these 6,000 troops were the first batch of reinforcements. As for the remaining 14,000 troops, 10,000 of them were sent to Thor's side. What was grandeur? This was it. Saul alone took up half of the 20,000 reinforcements. That's why sometimes being too famous wasn't a good thing. Because Warner Protoss's troops were holed up in the city, Rog and Hogan easily arrived at Kurun Castle. Kurun Castle wasn't a big city, and the walls were only 10 meters high. Any warrior with a little bit of strength could easily climb over the walls. If it weren't for the dozens of shining energy cannons on the walls, Rog would have thought that he had returned to the Middle Ages in Europe. 1,000 people attacking a city with a garrison of 8,000. This quest is amazing. After arriving at Kurun Castle, Rog used Chakra's perception to sense the situation inside Kurun Castle. There was no special energy reaction, which meant that there were just a lot of troops stationed there. There wasn't any enemy that needed special attention. We are the warriors of Asgard. Don't compare us with those miscellaneous troops. Although the number of troops was far less than the enemy, Hogan's confidence wasn't affected in the slightest. He didn't know where he got his confidence from. 1,000 against 8,000. That means one person can kill 8 enemies. Moreover, we are the ones attacking the city. Thor really knows how to arrange missions. We don't need to attack Kurun Castle. We just need to pin them down here. Asgard's reinforcements are already on the way. No wonder Hogan was so confident. Rog thought that he was hiding some big move. Compared to attacking Kurun Castle, it was much easier to pin down the troops stationed in the city. However, Rog didn't intend to waste too much time here. Do you still remember the mission I told you before? There is a good opportunity right now. Do you want to give it a try? Rog tempted Hogan like a devil from hell. What opportunity? As expected, Hogan took the bait. It's very simple. You just need to entrust me to help you take down Curran Castle. As for the reward, you can use URU metal instead. A city without high-level combatants, even if there were more people, at most it would take a little more time. You want to attack Curran Castle alone? Hogan looked at Rog in disbelief. He knew that Rog's combat strength was very strong, and he had mastered a lot of strange abilities. However, there were 8,000 troops stationed in Curran Castle. Even if there were 8,000 pigs, it wasn't something that one person could handle. Not to mention that these people could fight back, run away, and attack in groups. Yes, as long as you give a reasonable reward, I can help you take down Curran Castle. Even though he had seen Rog fight several times, Hogan still couldn't believe that Rog could take down Curran Castle alone. Write down the content of the mission and the reward. Anyway, if I can't complete the mission, you won't lose anything. As long as I pay some URU metal, I can get Curran Castle. This deal is profitable no matter how you look at it. While Hogan was still hesitating, Rog directly took out the mission scroll from the summon scroll, and then handed it to Hogan. Maybe he was moved by Rog, or maybe he wanted to make Rog give up, but Hogan finally wrote down the mission on the scroll. When he wrote down the reward, he hesitated for a few minutes, and then wrote down a number that he wasn't very confident in. URU metal, 5 kilograms. Hogan just signed his name, and the relevant mission information appeared in the system's mission page. Mission content: capture Curran Castle. Mission status: incomplete. Mission reward: 80 ninja coins. Rog thought that this would be a very simple and easy mission, but after seeing the mission reward given by the system, he felt that he seemed to have overlooked something. If it was just a simple mission, the system would never give a reward of 80 ninja coins. This made Rog smell a trace of danger. Show me the latest information about Curran Castle. For the sake of safety, he decided to carefully study the current situation of Curran Castle. Even if he was very strong, he still needed to be cautious. This was a valuable experience that Rog learned from a certain hero. Chapter 103. Map of the city, garrison forces, weapons and equipment. Although Rog didn't know where Hogan got all this information, but the information was so detailed that it was easy to make people think that there was a mole in the enemy's garrison, which helped him a lot. After carefully skimming through it a few times, Rog handed the several pages of information back to Hogan. But from the current information, he still didn't understand why the system gave him 80 ninja coins as a commission reward. But since he couldn't figure it out, he didn't want to think about it for the time being. You can go and prepare the URU metal now. I hope that when I come back, I can see those little guys with charming luster. After saying that, Rog walked out of the tent and went directly to the Curran Castle's gate. Kusanagi sword, thunder fan, plus Madara's armor, Rog felt that his current preparations were enough. The garrison of Curran Castle discovered the arrival of Rog and the others early in the morning, but they didn't have the slightest intention to take the initiative to attack. Going out to meet the enemy is cool, but people will die. Especially after knowing the news of the death of the 3 Storm brothers, the commander of Curran Castle completely cut off the idea of taking the initiative to attack. The commander of Curran Castle was very satisfied with the feeling of security now that he had the absolute advantage in terms of military strength and the protection of the city walls. However, after seeing Rog coming towards the gate, he suddenly felt a sense of danger in his heart. He didn't know why he had such intuition, but he decisively ordered the energy cannons on the city walls to aim at Rog. Being aimed at by more than a dozen shimmering cannons is not a very pleasant thing, because you don't know if these guys who are controlling the energy cannons will suddenly tremble. When he came to a place about 300 meters away from the gate, Rog stopped, held the handle of the thunder fan with his right hand, and took it from his back. Mission, execute. After muttering in his heart, Rog used the body flicker technique and disappeared from everyone's sight. He rushed directly to the city gate like lightning. With the body flicker technique, he only needed 2 to 3 seconds to cover the distance of 300 meters. While the garrisons on the city wall were still searching for him, he had already crossed the city wall and arrived in front of the garrisons with the thunderclap fan in hand. Ever since Rog obtained the thunderclap round fan, he had always used it as a defensive equipment. But after fighting with the 3 Storm Brothers, he felt that he could slightly change the purpose of the thunderous fan. The troops stationed in Karun Castle had no idea how he had appeared. The only thing they could see now was the thunder fan that was flashing with blue lightning. Boom! 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 4 to 5 arm-thick bolts of blue lightning struck the garrison on the city wall like lightning serpents, instantly wiping out the garrison on Rog's right. Rog didn't use any ninjutsu, he just injected the thunder attribute chakra into the thunderclap round fan and then released it. Although this way of using it was simple and crude, it was very effective. With the sound of these lightning bolts, the siege of Karun Castle officially began. The huge gap in strength often means the birth of a tragedy. When Rog came to the city wall of Karun Castle, his personal performance began. In the face of these garrisons who were far weaker than him, Rog was like a hungry wolf rushing into a flock of sheep. Although the garrisons of Karun Castle tried to stop Rog, they soon found that it was completely impossible. No matter how many of them went up, Rog could always break through their encirclement in the first time and then give them several lightning bolts. What made them even more desperate was that with the passage of time, Rog's speed seemed to be getting faster and faster. They were now completely unable to see Rog's figure. All they could see now was one lightning bolt after another, and an unreasonably large fan. It wasn't until today that the garrisons of Karun Castle learned that the fan can also kill people. Looking at Rog slaughtering the garrisons on the city wall like cutting vegetables and melons, the commander of Karun Castle had a tangled look on his face. As long as one's eyes weren't blind, it was very clear that there was a huge gap in strength between the garrisons and Rog. Although he was the commander of Karun Castle, he had to admit that his men were no different from ants in front of Rog. In an extraordinary world, without high-end combat power, this was the result of the scene in front of him. Thinking of this, the commander of Karun Castle couldn't help but curse in his heart. After those bastards in the military knew that the 3 Storm Brothers had died in battle, they refused to send high-end combat power over. To save their reputation, they had to put high-end combat power on a more suitable battlefield. After struggling for a few minutes, the commander of Karun Castle finally made a decision. Go to the dark dungeon and bring Owl here. Tell him that as long as he can defeat one person, we will return his sister to him. Sir, this is not good, Owl is, do as I say, I will take responsibility if there is a problem. More than 10 minutes later, Rog, who was on a killing spree on the city wall, saw the so-called Owl. He didn't know if it was because his killing just now was too brutal, or because Owl's reputation was too great, but when Owl appeared on the city wall, the garrisons quickly retreated as if they had seen the devil, and the entire city wall became empty in an instant. The moment Owl appeared, Rog used chakra to perceive his situation, and then he got a result that surprised him. There was no energy reaction in his body, and his vitality was at a normal level. Other than being over 2 meters tall and having muscles that were comparable to a bodybuilding champion, the shirtless Owl didn't look special at all. This guy, there's nothing special about him. Just when Rog identified Owl as an ordinary person, an amazing scene happened. Owl, who was dozens of meters away from him, flashed in front of him, and his right fist directly hit the armor on his chest, sending him flying. Boom! Rog, who was sent flying, directly crashed through the wall of the tower. This speed, it was the first time Rog encountered this kind of thing. Until now, he still didn't figure out what had just happened. If he wasn't wearing armor, Owl's punch was enough to cause him a lot of injuries. However, at this moment, the strange owl appeared in front of him again. Again? Rog, who had already suffered a loss once, naturally wouldn't sit still. When Owl's right fist was about to hit him again, dozens of blue electric currents visible to the naked eye appeared on his body. Lightning release 1,000 birds. Boom! Rog was once again sent flying by Owl, but this time, Owl who attacked him also flew out upside down. Although he looked a little disheveled, Rog did not suffer any particularly serious injuries. Thank you Vibranium, thank you URU Metal, thank you 1,000 birds. After returning to the city wall, Rog didn't dare to have the slightest carelessness. He put the thunder round fan back on his back and took out the flying Thor kunai. It was faster than his body flicker technique, and surpassed the dynamic visual ability of Sharingan. Rog, who is good at speed, met an enemy who is also good at speed for the first time. Chapter 104. What was going on with this guy? If a person possessed unimaginable super speed, then generally speaking, there were only two possibilities. One was to master the extraordinary power related to speed, and the other was a superpower born from the genetic mutation of the body. But at this time, Owl was obviously neither of the two situations. There was no energy in his body, and his life force was at a normal level. There were no signs of genetic mutation. Owl, who had attacked Rog twice in a row, did not stop there. When the numbness caused by the 1,000-bird flow slightly eased, he launched a third attack on Rog. It was still a straightforward attack. Although Owl had incredible speed, his attack method was so simple that it made people speechless. Relying on speed to come in front of the enemy, and then using his fist to attack the enemy. Rog, who had suffered twice, naturally would not be hit by such a simple attack again. At the moment when Owl's figure disappeared, he also used the blink technique to leave the place. Even so, Owl still kept up with his speed. Just when Owl's right fist was about to hit his head, his figure suddenly disappeared in front of Owl. Flying Thor. Rog returned to his previous position and picked up the flying Thor kunai that he deliberately left in place. What kind of experience was it to fight with an enemy with super speed? This question had always been answered by Rog's enemy. And now, he could finally answer this question himself. The answer was only one word: aggrieved. To be precise, it was extremely aggrieved. Unable to see the enemy's trace, unable to dodge the enemy's attack, unable to keep up with the enemy's movements, no matter what the situation was, it was enough to make people feel extremely aggrieved. What was more troublesome was that behind this aggrieved feeling, death followed closely. The blink technique was definitely out of the question. Owl's speed had obviously exceeded the blink technique's speed. This also meant that Rog only had one last choice left. The flying Thor technique. Rog did not expect that there would be a day when he would use the flying Thor to compete with someone in speed, and it was with a strange man who had super speed for some unknown reason. Were they trying to determine who was the fastest man? Rog didn't have a problem with the word fastest, nor did he have a problem with the word man. It was just that he had an instinctive repulsion when he put the fastest time with a man. Just when Rog was still thinking about it, Owl recovered from his doubts and no longer cared about how Rog disappeared just now. In this regard, Owl was very similar to Rog. Since he couldn't figure it out, he wouldn't think about it anymore. Before Owl launched an attack, Rog took the initiative to throw the flying Thor kunai in his hand to Owl. After throwing out the flying Thor kunai, he didn't care whether the kunai hit Owl or not. Instead, he used the body flicker technique to leave the place, and then took out another flying Thor kunai. Although the speed of the flying Thor kunai is very fast, it is obviously not impossible to hit Owl. Owl just tilted his body slightly and avoided the flying Thor kunai flying towards his head. But just when he had just avoided the first flying Thor kunai, the second flying Thor kunai also came in front of him. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. It wasn't until after throwing out 8 flying Thor kunai that Rog stopped this seemingly meaningless attack. Because each time the flying Thor kunai was thrown from a different angle, these flying Thor kunai that Owl dodged were inserted in different positions on the city wall. If you carefully observe the landing point of these flying Thor kunai, you will find that these flying Thor kunai seem to be thrown out randomly, but in fact, each flying Thor kunai presents a similar angle. The preliminary work has been prepared, then it's time to perform. Rog threw the flying Thor kunai in his hand, and then disappeared with the kunai in an instant. Although Owl didn't know what Rog was going to do, at the moment when Rog disappeared, he also entered an incredible state of speed. From the perspective of a bystander, Rog and Owl seemed to have completely disappeared, and the entire city wall became empty in an instant. So, an awkward scene happened. Whether it was the garrison on the Kurran castle or the Asgard soldiers outside the city, they could only silently stare at the empty city wall like fools, and then pray for the appearance of Rog and Owl. If it weren't for Rog and Owl's figures occasionally appearing on the city wall, they would even suspect that Rog and Owl had already left the Kurran castle. Rog repeatedly jumped between the flying Thor kunai, and Owl would also appear in front of him at the moment when he finished teleporting. Then, he would jump again, and Owl would start to chase again. The whole process seemed to be very harmonious. After all, no one could touch each other, and naturally, there would be no so-called battle. Owl was like a hound that would never be tired, constantly chasing Rog, the prey. Although Rog could stop and counterattack, he didn't have such an idea at all. Before figuring out why Owl had such incredible speed, he would not have the intention to attack Owl. Until now, he finally understood why the system gave 80 ninja coins as a commission reward. An enemy with super speed is more difficult to deal with than an enemy with super physique. On the surface, Rog was just using the flying Thor to constantly teleport to avoid being hit by Owl. But in fact, he was silently perceiving everything in Owl's body through chakra perception. This was the first time he was perceiving an enemy so seriously. Almost after chakra perception's perception ability was exerted to the limit, he finally perceived a trace of abnormality in Owl's body. Every time Owl entered super speed, a mysterious force would appear in his body. This force would only appear for a short few milliseconds, and then completely disappear. It was this mysterious force that only existed for a few milliseconds that gave Owl unreasonable super speed. After figuring this out, Rog immediately came up with a new battle plan in his mind. If Owl's super speed was his own ability, then Rog could only have a real speed competition with him. But since this speed was given to Owl by the mysterious force, then things became a lot simpler. After all, the power that doesn't belong to oneself is unreliable. Rog intended to let Owl experience what is called his own power. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.